hopefully this won't be a complete fucking shit show. But seems like we're live. YouTube is kind of weird though. But yeah, so yeah, what me and Brian are gonna be doing tonight is discussing our favorite PS4 games, since PS5 is coming out real soon and there's really nothing else coming out for PS4 that's really a PS4 game. I mean, there's some that are going to be on both, but yeah, it was just, we wanted to discuss it like we've done in the past. I think our lists are going to have some in common but also be really different, so it should be fun. We're just doing 10 each, and we're going to go back and forth basically, starting with our number 10 or whatever. And personally, I'm excluding remakes. Reboots, I would say, are fine, like just because they change the game enough to where it's almost like a different game. But remakes like Shadow of the Colossus, I'm not gonna include because it's basically a PS2 game remade, and that would be easily on my list. But I mean, then so would like other remasters like The Last of Us or Uncharted 2 and stuff. So I'm just scrapping those out and just going for like actual PS4 games that are unique to PS4. But yeah. Okay, so the other thing we were gonna do, we were gonna try to play the theme song of each to see if we can guess what the game is. Not gonna play it for too long because it's probably not gonna sound great because we're playing it into the mic. But here goes. See if you can guess this, Brian. Let me know if it's too loud too.
It's actually cutting in and out a lot, and I'm not sure what it is.
Still cutting out?
No, it's a little loud though.
That sucks that it's either loud or
I'll take loud. That's fine. I could.
But I'm not thinking you're gonna be able to guess this one just because you haven't played it too much, if at all. No idea.
It sounds. It's either something major like a racing game that I.
There is driving in it.
And I got nothing.
It's Rocket League.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, now when you play the game, you don't even hear that theme song anymore. But yeah, that is, like, definitely one of my favorite games, like, just period. Like, and it's one of the games I play the most. It's one of those games where it's super easy to pick up the controls and to just play. I mean, the driving is almost like Mario Kart-esque, but it's also, like Mario Kart, takes a lot to really master all of the mechanics fully to where you can be like one of the best players, which I am certainly not, but I still have a lot of fun with the game. I also feel like it's one of the best multiplayer games, and it's also hits that sweet spot of a multiplayer game where each round takes about 7 or 8 minutes, kind of like Call of Duty. I think that's always been one of the best things about Rocket League and Call of Duty, is that you're just in and out. And it's just really fun to play, like really cool idea, and mechanically really good. Like, and it's easy and difficult at the same time, which is usually a pretty good thing. But it's just fun. Like, I don't know, I love the game, and there's a reason why it's super popular, especially now that it's free to play. Like, I was playing it last night, and there was like 900,000 people online, which is, I think, even more than when it first launched and was free on PlayStation Plus, which is impressive because I remember that, the player count getting huge, especially because it's a cross-platform game, and that's the other good thing is now it's cross-platform, cross-progression. But yeah, definitely one of my most played, most consistently played games ever, and one of my favorites. But yeah, you don't have a whole lot of experience with it, right?
No. It always seemed interesting, but it combined two things that I just tremendously dislike, which is sports games and racing.
Yeah.
So I just never especially soccer.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, I don't. Although, to be honest, it kind of plays more like hockey. Even though it's a ball, but it does play, because of the arena being fully enclosed, it's kind of more similar to hockey when in actual practice. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
I think because I love driving games, that's part of the reason why it's really the only sports game that I like other than racing games.
I can see. I mean, it was super popular, and it's been super popular for a long time. It's on every platform and cross-play and free-to-play now, so it's even got a bigger boost.
Yeah, so on Switch, I play it on Switch quite a bit. Mobile, it's like one of those games when I can't figure out what I want to play on Switch. That's one of my go-tos, really. But yeah, I guess that's all we really have to say about Rocket League. I think everyone knows that game, and can move on. So yeah, you want to see if I can guess your number 10? Probably
Sure,
not.
I don't necessarily have these in any ascending or descending order of favorite.
You just have 10? Oh, okay.
I mean, if I had to quantify, if I had to rank them in any way, shape, or form, I guess this would be towards the bottom of the list for me. But yeah, just because I have this here and another game 5 spots up doesn't necessarily mean that I like the other game significantly more than this.
Yeah.
It's just, I had a hard enough time bringing my list down to 10 or 11. So, just wanted to throw that out, but you are never gonna get this, and that's totally fine.
Okay. And I just remembered I forgot my idea of playing video of the game I'm talking about, so I guess I won't be able to do it for this game of yours, but I'll play some Rocket League while we're... What? I'm guessing it's a JRPG. Is it like Dragon Quest 11 or something?
That is Stardew Valley.
Oh, okay. Makes
indie
sense.
game. Yeah. I mean, it does have some RPG-ish qualities, but instead of fighting a bunch of monsters, no, you do fight a bunch of monsters, but you also farm and get married.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
How similar is it to Animal Crossing?
It's not that similar. I mean, I guess it's technically a sim that's similar to Animal Crossing, but it's more akin to like Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons and those lines of games. It's like or Rune Factory or something like that, where the point of the game is to build relationships, get to know people in the town that you start out in, do farming, make money, upgrade your farm, upgrade your house, build barns and chicken coops and raise animals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This game, Stardew Valley, is a little different. It's got some like dungeon delving, stuff like that. And unlike the cutesy, more child-friendly themes like Animal Crossing, you have a little more adult themes in Stardew Valley, which is kind of funny. Like, you quit your dead-end job to go to the wilderness and farm, but there's still the evil Walmart-like corporation that's trying to take over the town. And
Really?
you have trailer trash who drive a bus and are constantly drinking and have weird family lives, and homeless man up in the mountains who everyone hates or not really hates, but everyone kind of doesn't like him. It's weird, but it's fun and it's contemporary and it feels more like the kind of Harvest Moon that we would have in real life, even though there's still like fighting monsters and shit like that. But it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's super addictive to me. I love those kinds of games. I played it on PC originally. You know a game's gonna be good. I play it on PC.
Yeah.
I put a lot of time into it on PS4. I put even more time into it on Switch. So I've easily put between 100 and 200 hours. If not more,
kind of like
platforms.
some of the games on my list that you can play on multiple platforms. It's one of those games where you get on anything you can buy it on, like Switch, PC, PS4, and that would be the case with Rocket League. Like I have it on, Steam, PS4, and Switch. Although I've played it most on. Actually, it's kind of hard to say now, just because of the portability. Like, but I'm sure you have that issue too, right? Like where you're not sure which platform you played it the most on with Stardew, because you played it a lot on Switch, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to... I don't have the Platinum on PS4. It's very, very time-consuming and very... I wouldn't say complicated, but just not easy to get. On Switch, I could look it up. It's somewhere in like the 80s or the 90s. On Switch alone.
I wish PS4 would actually do that for us, the whole hour.
Yeah.
It does at the end of the year, but it only tells you like your top 3 games, how many hours you played. I wish they would just like unlock it to us and just show us all of it,
I hope PS5 has some of that functionality, because Nintendo's been doing that on their consoles for a little while. Like I think 3DS had something like that, and
Steam does it too.
Like weekly reports of how, like activity logs and stuff like that. On Wii U and 3DS had something like that.
I'll be surprised if they don't with PS5.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's one of those features that is there or will come, because it's not super important, but it is fun and neat to have.
Yep, for sure. Definitely. Okay. Now, the next one, I think you're going to be able to guess the theme song once it, like, actually kicks in. But, yeah, here we go.
Tonight.
Oh, come on. Fucking ads. Go away, Patrick. Whatever. Picard, whatever your name is. Patrick. What's it? Stewart?
Patrick Stewart playing Jean-Luc Picard.
Yes. 2 ads. Thanks, YouTube. 2 unskippable ads. Thanks. It does start out quiet, so that's good. Might be a problem with the cutting out.
I was able to figure it out within about 2 seconds.
Yeah, okay. So you know what it is.
It narrowly avoided my list.
Yeah, it definitely made mine. But it's Spiderman, for anyone listening who doesn't know. Yeah, I really loved it. Like, it's one of my favorite open world games. And it's just super, super fun to play. And also one of the surprising aspects of it is the story is really, really good in it too. Yeah, it's just an awesome game. Like, this obviously traversal is super fun, and that's one of the hallmarks of like open world games that I really like, is when traversal is fun. That helps it a lot. But I really love the combat too. Like, it's not like a super unique game combat wise. Like, it kind of uses that Batman formula that a lot of games have used, and I think it does it better than most. Like, I think it's actually probably my favorite of that type of combat. In like the upgrade path, I also think works really well too, and as well as the like enemy types. Like, you know how the enemies, they obviously get more tough, and then like there'll be certain ones that you have to use certain techniques against. Like, I thought it was done really well in a way that's like intuitive and easy to follow, unlike some other games. Like, I feel like some other ones, it can get a little bit irritating the way it's handled. But and Spider-Man, I thought it was just awesome. Like, yeah, I really, really, that's why I couldn't find footage of it. They have it as Marvel's Spider-Man in the fucking
Italian.
capture gallery.
No
but
idea,
yeah,
but I'm
like,
still glad it makes these fries.
Totally.
I think it's Insomniac's best game. I think it's
So,
one of
how's the grind for
the best games you can get on a PS4.
Yeah, well, I just got
That
an
I think
all-caps
like
text from Robbie
most
about
people
my
will enjoy, and that's why it
pancakes
sold so
tonight.
well.
So it looks like I'll be
But,
meeting with the legal team. Again.
Yeah, like I think
As soon as he reads the article you're gonna write,
it's definitely
guaranteed
one of
promotion.
the best stories on PS4 too, which
So,
I really, really like. I'm glad that
nice,
they
guys.
put a lot of effort into the story and just wrote a really
Another night in
good
the city. What's your take?
story, considering it's like such
Just
a
your story there.
long-running franchise. I think
It's not all
what's it
about
called?
business.
The only thing negative I have to
How's
say
it
about
going
it
with
is
you?
that they
Did you get that
spoiled the
promotion?
best set
No,
pieces in the
but we're on
and
the
missions
cusp
in the
of something
game
big.
at
You know,
E3
would hire you in a heartbeat,
twice in a
right?
row.
One phone call.
And it's
away.
like,
Sure,
so that was like the only disappointment I really had playing the game.
Right
Oh,
where I
also the
want, right where
DLC
I
chapters that they put out are
Oh,
awesome.
sounds like it's
Like,
more important
really
than
good
your other
stuff.
job.
So that's another thing.
I've never heard you talk like
But
that before.
yeah, I guess we'll
can change in
see
6
on
months.
PS5 hopefully. Although apparently they're trying to charge us $20
Why did you
bucks
ask me here, Pete?
for a remaster, and we don't even know what the remaster
just,
looks like
just
or
dinner
what it's
between
gonna
friends.
be, how it's gonna be better, other than
Was that what we heard?
slightly higher
Maybe
resolution
quickly,
and
you know,
better
if
loading
That's
times.
what you wanted.
So that's kind of annoying from Sony,
There's
but
a lot of baggage here.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be on
was-
PS5
Yeah,
in
sure,
that
but
form or in backwards
Is that so
compatibility.
bad? I mean, baggage can carry
I'm a
good
little
things too,
surprised
like
that they're
good
going that
money
route.
and keys.
Me too, especially with
Raspberry lip
Xbox putting so much pressure on them and
Do you remember why
doing
we
stuff
broke
like
up?
that for free instead of
This is a
charging
trick
us
question, isn't it?
$20 on only a certain edition of a new
Side by
cross-gen
side.
game, which is Miles Morales, Spider-Man, whatever. The Ultimate Edition is the only way you can get Spider-Man remastered on PS5, which is irritating.
Yeah. No, I agree with a lot of
Love
your
seeing you two together
praises of the
again.
game.
You
Like I
always
said,
were
it
my
narrowly
favorites.
avoided my list. I haven't beaten it. That's basically the only reason why I didn't include it on my list. It's one of those games where every time
You
I
haven't finished it?
I know. Something always comes up, and I play it for a while, and I'm really
Oh.
into it, and then something comes up, and I just drop
Well,
it for a while.
I guess it's a good thing I didn't point out any spoilers then.
I'm in like the latter half of the game.
Yeah, there's some stuff that happens at the end that, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad that didn't come up. Like, yeah.
And obviously the fact that Miles Morales gets some superpowers at some point in the game happens.
Yeah, he
Bit
is
of a
in the
spoiler.
game, and they did hint at him being like a part of
I-
the series going forward. So we'll see what happens with it, because this next Miles Morales game is supposed to be kind of just like an expansion or a side story, I think. Which I'm glad,
Something
because
about-
this Peter Parker is my favorite Peter Parker. So
He
I
was
would be
good.
a little annoyed if they end it with just one game with Peter Parker. So we'll see.
I mean, Miles Morales, I'm getting kind of nerdy and comic booky on you for a moment. Miles Morales, Peter Parker, I think, I don't remember what happened to him he was from the Ultimate Universe. It was like a separate, slightly different version of events that happened in the Marvel Universe with different side stories and stuff like that, they could tell different stories. I can't remember if Peter died or if he just gave up the mantle and did something else. I honestly can't remember. It's been so long. But Miles Morales came along, and this was like 8 years. This was a long time ago, actually, like 8 years ago or something like that. So he's been around for a while in the comic space. So the second I knew, the second I saw in one of the trailers, a younger black kid in a Spider-Man game, I was like, oh, Miles Morales, of course. And lo and behold, that's what it ended up being. So obviously I knew without even having to finish the game that at some point Miles gets some powers and becomes a Spider-Man.
Yeah, they did hint at that pretty early. Also, pretty good photo mode in Spider-Man. it's definitely a good looking game too. But yeah, it's definitely a must play, I think. Definitely.
I don't disagree. It's one of those games that I'm trying to beat before PS5. I'm almost done with The Witcher, the main game, so who the fuck knows how much longer I have with DLCs and stuff like that. But I hope to beat it. I'm in like the latter part of Spider-Man. After all the criminals break out, after the Silver Sable mercenaries have taken over the city and doing their thing.
Yeah,
and their enemies.
Oh yeah, that's like third act or whatever. The other shitty part about the remaster though is saves don't transfer, so it's not even like you could just finish it on PS5.
Right.
So but I think Sony's being a little shitty. I don't know.
Different trophy list. I will
not the whole what was it? $599, Sony. They're not that bad, but yeah, they could be doing better, I think, to compete with Xbox.
At the very least, it's a different trophy list. So in case you platinumed it, you can platinum it again. For $20, that's at least not the worst deal in the world. And the save is weird and dumb, but if it's a separate game with different file coding, like The Witcher base game versus The Witcher Complete Edition, that's why saves are not compatible. That still has a different trophy list too. So it's a weird thing, but if they're charging $28, at least it's a separate trophy list.
Yeah. But okay. I guess what's your next one?
Hopefully this is it. I kind of scrambled and tried to do it quietly while we were setting up, but
Bloodborne?
Yep.
Yeah, that one is easy to pick out, even though the music was cutting out a little bit. But
it was a tough call between that and Neo for me. They were both on my list up until earlier today, and I wasn't sure which I wanted to put on like my top 10 list, and I really debated. I played Neo more. I played Neo through first. I tried Bloodborne. I got to a certain point. I just stopped for a while. Same thing with Neo, but I picked it back up and I beat it. Neo is like the first quote-unquote Soulsborne light game that I beat. One of those super demanding, hard games. I love the setting of Neo, but just everything about Bloodborne. The enemy designs, the Lovecraftian nature, the medieval setting, the aggressive nature of combat.
The bosses.
A lot of the bosses are really cool. Almost everything about Bloodborne makes it an amazing game. Certain small aspects of it, like they're stupid. I will always hate forced PvP. Games like that in Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and you can't really, unless you go offline, but then you can't play online with people, which is problematic sometimes. I hate that aspect, and online and co-op is complicated in and of itself. But removing all of those things, it's just it was an amazing game. So good. I absolutely loved playing through it again. With you.
Yeah.
So much doing it. And ever since then, I've been wanting to kind of go back and play it on the New Game Plus and get a different ending. But then I would fuck up when it comes to the DLC. Start using a different file to be able to do that and start from scratch again.
Yeah, like
which is weird for me.
It's a pretty complex game, and we didn't even really mess with the Chalice dungeons at all either, really. I think we did one of them maybe, but I think we ran into a roadblock somehow. But yeah, like it a lot too. Like, I don't think it's like make my you know, top list, but it wouldn't be too far out. I don't think. Like, I think one aspect that people don't know too much about Bloodborne is the story, and the story is actually really cool from what I remember. I mean, most of what I know about it is not from the game, unfortunately, because it doesn't really present it in an easily digestible way. But, like, there's a guy who does videos on YouTube explaining the story who's awesome. I forget his name. Fatty Video or something like that.
Fatty Video, yeah.
Yeah,
Like that.
but, like, a lot of it is similar to, Lovecraft's, like, stuff, like the, what's it called? Cthulhu mythos and all that? With, like, the old ones, or... Wait. See, I get confused because each game calls it some version. It's like the great ones, the old ones, the ancient. Which one is it? The actual one in the Lovecraft universe? What do they call it?
I think it's the old ones.
Is
I
it?
don't.
Because I think that's what they call it. I don't know. Who cares? I guess it's easy to mix up those like titles when the games have their own little versions of it. Because I think, like, I'm not sure, but maybe all the Souls games have some Lovecraft inspiration in them. But another one of my absolute favorite parts of Bloodborne is the enemy design. Like, I really think, well, really all the Souls games have some of the coolest and creepiest enemy design in the business. Like, they're just so good at it. Yeah, I love all that stuff. Like, some of the creatures and boss creatures, like, just so amazing to look at. But yeah, it's really great game. I think it's the best Souls type game, personally, but Demon Souls is coming out soon too, and I always like that one, so it'll be nice to finally actually play past the, you know, first or second boss, whatever I made it on PS3. Not too far, but I really liked it, so.
I mean, it's enough for me to pre-order it and be super excited about it as a launch title.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I never cared about Dark Souls. I even played Demon Souls long before people liked the Souls games.
Yeah.
Way back on PS3 in like 2010.
Yeah, Demon Souls did not catch on right away.
No.
At all. Like,
and I never really cared about Dark Souls when it was at its like peak popularity, but just the second I saw Bloodborne's trailer at E3 however many years ago, I was just sold on it and wanted to pre-order it, even though I had no interest in From Software games up to that. That made me want to be interested in it.
yeah, some people don't like the slower nature of some of the Souls games. I actually do kind of like it. Like, I feel like Neo is a little too fast, just because sometimes you'll be doing good and then you make one mistake and then you're just dead instantly, and that type of thing. It's hard to get better at a game like that, I feel, which is why I kind of lean more towards the Souls games, just because there's more opportunity, I feel, to like practice and like more opportunity to make mistakes, in my experience. But
although I think the checkpoints in Neo are a little bit
that I can understand for sure. I think I'd rather have less checkpoints but more forgiving combat, but I could see it both ways, because Call of Duty on Veteran is kind of like that too, like where it's very, very difficult to survive, but you also have so many checkpoints that you can just make your way through. But yeah, alright, we'll move on to the next one. This is a game you're gonna know. I don't know if you're gonna know the theme song right away. You probably will, because it was in one of the major trailers for it, but here goes.
still cutting in and out a little bit. It sounds really familiar. I'm upset with myself, but I don't know it.
This is
I feel like I
100%. You should know it. It's Metal Gear Solid 5.
should. Oh.
Yeah, and that's like the song from the, you know, the wicked long trailer that they first released, which is one of the best trailers I think ever made. But also, this is one of the best games ever made, I think. Like, I love this game. I don't think this game gets enough credit just because of some of the controversy and, you know, just the whole thing with Kojima and how it's technically sort of unfinished. But see, I played it not really knowing that there was like a bunch missing. I just did think it was odd that there were some threads that were left untied. But I still just loved this game so much on a gameplay level and even a story level, which I think gets criticized a lot because the presentation of the story is certainly way different from the rest of the Metal Gear games, which I do prefer the way that the other Metal Gear games were presented, but at the same time, a lot of people complain about Metal Gear Solid 4 having too much cutscenes, and then now they're complaining about the opposite. So it's like, be careful what you wish for, I guess. But I still just absolutely loved the game. I think it was by a mile the best game in 2015, and it had stiff competition: The Witcher, Rocket League, Bloodborne. And I think this just blows the rest away, like on a gameplay level, on a game design level. Like, just, I think it's the best stealth game ever made, for sure. Like, I just love the mechanics in the game. I love the tools that it gives you, and just the way it plays out. And
that's the target.
Like, I definitely understand some of the criticisms, but I just had so much fun with it, and I even really liked the story, even though the story has some of its wackiness. I mean, it's a Kojima game, so it's kind of natural for it to have a little wackiness or just be a little bit confusing at points, but I still just found it so interesting. Like, to me, that's almost more important than a story being well written, is that it be interesting. And it maybe it's not as interesting to other people as it is to me, but I just eat shit like that up, like just crazy nonsense, like like parasites that give you like powers and shit, or whatever it was. I forget exactly how some of the weirder things in the game worked, but either way, I just loved my time with the game, and I spent a shitload of time with it. You could technically beat the main story missions in, like, I don't know, 50 hours. It took me 110 at least just to get to the end, and I even skipped a lot of the repeat missions, and there's also some major missions I didn't do because I didn't want to lose Quiet as a buddy or whatever. But yeah, like, it's one of my favorites. Great soundtrack, great gameplay, also great engine. Like, the graphics are awesome while also running ultra smooth at 60 FPS. And yeah, it's just an awesome fucking game that I still don't think gets enough credit, just because of the controversy and all that nonsense, and because people seem to love The Witcher 3, and for me it's not even close. Like, the moment-to-moment gameplay in The Witcher 3 is just nowhere near as good as Metal Gear Solid 5, and I can't, like, in a game as long as they both are, I just can't see how people could enjoy something that's so much less satisfying moment-to-moment compared to Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, Metal Gear Solid 5, the gameplay is just stellar. Like, all the little tools they give you to stay into stealth, or to just confuse the enemy, or to just go all out and just murder everyone. Like, it has everything. And also a lot of the stuff with, like, the whole mother base thing, and the Fulton recovery system, where you're, like, putting, like, enemy soldiers on balloons so that they can go back to your base and you can make them your soldier all of a sudden. It's just a sick game. And yeah, I think they could have done more with it at the same time. That's probably my biggest complaint, is they hinted at some stuff in the trailers that did not come to pass. Like the whole thing with Eli having a reflection of his twin, who is obviously a very important character in the Metal Gear series, and who is my favorite character in the series. So yeah, it was kind of sad that they didn't include that and didn't do more with like Psycho Mantis and stuff like that. I wanted there to be more there, but like I basically wanted more fan service, which, you know, you'd think I'd be overdosed with fan service from Metal Gear Solid 4, but nah, I eat that shit up, and that's part of why. That's one of the only things I didn't like about Metal Gear Solid 5, but the gameplay itself is just so good, and it's one game that I want to go back to and play more again. Like, I am gonna like run through the whole series at some point, but yeah, awesome game. What do you think?
I might need to go back and replay it again, but I was really high on it when it first came out, and I feel like a lot of that was maybe more associated with certain events going on in my life at the time. That game is directly tied to the birth of my firstborn son. I mean, they came out within like 10 days of each other. So I very fondly remember playing that while holding him when he's going to sleep, because me and my wife were super paranoid when we first became parents, and neither of us wanted to go to sleep at the same time as each other while he would, neither of us wanted to be asleep at the same time, so someone was always awake while he was around. So I would stay up late playing Metal Gear Solid 5. Since then, I just, maybe, like I said, maybe it's just because I haven't played it in a while and I don't remember it as well, but I haven't had an overwhelming desire to go back and play more of it or replay it or anything like that. Just the story, even from a Metal Gear Solid standpoint, was really weird and nonsensical to me. And I knew it was bound to happen, but I don't know how much I liked the forced connections between various games. Like Eli / spoiler alert, Liquid Snake was necessary. Solid Snake not being anywhere mentioned at all was weird. Baby Psycho Mantis being included was kind of weird. The reincarnated body of Vol'jin as a fire demon was really fucking weird. The parasitic soldiers and the vocal parasite thing, really weird. All of that was weird. I mean,
also Skullface, how like he was barely even a villain, like,
yeah,
or he was, but like you would expected more out of it, but yeah, it didn't lead to a whole lot. So it's like, I get a lot of the criticisms, but I was just like transfixed by the game despite all that, and just loved the gameplay. Like, but yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of the criticism. I still just think gameplay alone, it's better than Witcher 3, and I think it's better than Bloodborne 2 even. But
it's not.
I'm in the minority because like Witcher 3 was one of the most unanimous game of the years like ever. So yeah.
I mean, the gameplay was fantastic.
It really is. This is so much fun.
Open world stealth is a great idea. Like, fantastic idea. I kind of wish that they had a few different modes of transportation, because there was a lot of running. There was the box in the depot fast travel kind of thing going on, and then you could drive a car, and that was about it. Like, it's kind of weird you had no explain or something like later on in the game, given the fact that you had a fucking Metal Gear and you had the little Metal Gear, mini Metal Gear, like walker type.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that thing.
So, you know, some of that was really weird and off the wall, and I feel like they just really did not Otacon, what's his fucking
Huey?
Huey was just the weirdest inclusion in Metal Gear, period.
Yeah, and because they also...
He was a dumb bitch.
Yeah.
Exact copy of HAL. Like, they look exactly the same, except Huey was just
way less likable.
Little bitch. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, one of the things I love about it, and it's kind of common for a few other games on this list, but it's one of those games that just gives you a tool set and gives you a bunch of problems to deal with, and you are just able to deal with them exactly how you want to. Like another remaster that would make the list, otherwise, if I didn't exclude them, is Crysis Remastered, which is what I'm playing right now. But it's like, and some other games that will be on the list, but like, I just love when games do that. They just set you off into a world, give you a bunch of tools that you gotta use the way you want to, and like, I just like that about games. Like, I love when games do that. Like, it's kind of like a sandboxy type thing, except you have objectives. And yeah, I'm a big fan of games that do that, and Metal Gear Solid 5 is definitely one of them. But yeah. All right. Do you want to play your next one?
Sure.
I think eventually we're gonna have some crossover.
Oh.
Oh yeah, Alex says hi, Brian.
Oh, what's up? I don't know if that's audible enough. Oh, there we go.
Is that Witcher 3?
No.
Oh, I think I got it. Assassin's Creed Origins?
Close. Odyssey.
Odyssey? Oh, see,
Yeah.
that sounded like Egyptian to me. Oh well.
I mean, Egypt, Greece. Close enough. Mediterranean.
Kinda, yeah. Yeah, I can see it. I almost had it.
Yeah. I mean, it was my game of the year, not last year, 2 years ago. I think when it came out. I put so much time into it. I platinumed it. I loved every second of it. The story I barely remember because it wasn't that great, because that's how modern Ubisoft games are.
Yep.
Shit stories that don't make sense or are completely forgettable, and I'm okay with that. The gameplay of that game is just beyond fantastic. It was similar to what you were just talking about with getting out into the world and just going nuts and having few objectives. There was some smaller side quests that you can partake in and be fine with, but a lot of it was just exploring. And to the point where people complained about being underleveled for certain story missions because they just rushed from story to story mission without actually exploring the world, which is a shame because you had all this great stuff out there. I mean, you can, visit Athens and Sparta and fight Minotaurs and Cyclopses and Medusa, and they all have like a explanation based on something that you would like, which is like kind of how the Apple of Eden is based on like the ancient civilization, which is based on or like some ancient Greek and Roman gods and stuff like that. Like there's some connection between all that from those Assassin's Creed games. There's similar aspects to it where some of the more mythological stuff is explained by ancient civilizations with the Apple of Eden and stuff like that, but very little of that is present in the game, which I'm just okay with. It's mostly just you exploring ancient Greece, which is one of my favorite historical settings, period. It's a great time period. The battle between Athens and Sparta, the fall of Athens, for a time, just all really fascinating. Great. It was just beautiful to look at too because of the Mediterranean setting, and it was still varied enough where you had a lot of like the stereotypical Mediterranean island, but you still had some like desert areas. Not too much, obviously, because of Mediterranean, but
yeah, I like. It's one of those games like I just can't like just because of its name. Like yeah, you know my story with Assassin's Creed. It used to be one of my favorite series ever until they just completely changed it and got rid of it having a story. Like for me, that's like the thing you were mentioning about the story being forgettable. That's completely egregious to me. Like I just can't love a game that doesn't have a great story. Well, like at least one that has one. Just because like when you put a story in a game, that brings certain knowledge of how good it could be if the story was amazing, because there's so many other games that do have amazing stories, so that when they don't but they have a story, I just can't like love them. Like it just takes it away the experience from me, even if the gameplay is really awesome. Yeah, it's just I just need, if there is a story and it's not interesting, it just kind of ruins the game for me. And that's especially with Assassin's Creed, I just feel burnt, like just by the fact that they, you know, when I first got into the series was around when Assassin's Creed 3 came out, and that ended up being the last Assassin's Creed game that I liked at all. The rest of them I hate, just because they just totally dumped on Desmond, dumped the present day story that all the rest of the games were leading up to, or just like they did so much with all that. And that was like one of my favorite parts of some of the games, like because Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, for example, which is like strangely one of the most highly regarded games in the series, the story in the past was completely throwaway, probably similar to Odyssey, you know, like where it's just not that interesting, even though it has Ezio, and Ezio is an awesome character. But it was the present day parts of that I really found fascinating and just really cool. And then like they built on that with Revelations, where they revealed more about the overarching story, and then even more with 3. And I was just like so fully bought into the series at that point. And then they dropped a bomb with Assassin's Creed 4 and just took all that shit away and just ruined the series for me completely. And then it never came back. And then with Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, they changed it even more, which just took me even further out of ever wanting to give the series my time again. Like Ubisoft has like definitely changed. Like you said, all their games now have just kind of throwaway stories, and that to me is just like kind of unforgivable. Like it's really hard for me to enjoy a game with a story like that, especially when they'll come up with like a decent premise but then just not deliver on it. Like that to me is just like, it ruins the game for me. So yeah, that's definitely not one that's going to be on my list.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't necessarily like Witcher as much as Metal Gear, and Assassin's Creed is basically The Witcher 3 with stealth.
Probably better traversal.
In ancient Greece. Oh yeah. Fantastic traversal.
That's the one thing I liked about the follow-up Assassin's Creed, like Unity. Like I thought the traversal was really good. And the graphics were really good too. It's just like, yeah, they took away what I loved most about the series. So, yeah. It's Fair dead enough. To me. Assassin's Creed is dead to me.
I have Valhalla pre-ordered. Alive and kicking in my house. I was about to say pants, I don't know. Alive and kicking in my
speaking of Valhalla,
Yeah.
you queued me up for that one.
You only needed all of 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, of course. This is a very recognizable theme song. Yeah, God of War, obviously. I love that game. It's one of my favorites for good reason. Like, yeah, it's one of the few examples of a series completely changing what the game is like, but while being better. Like, I feel like the best God of War is God of War on PS4. Like, everything about it is just stellar. Like, I think it's one of the rare games that there's really not a whole lot of weaknesses to it. Like, every single aspect of it. And one of my favorite things is just the way they present the story, while the gameplay is also a huge focus. Like, the presentation of the story is just perfect. It's stellar, and I think it's one of the rare games that gets people that maybe aren't as into story in games as, you know, maybe me or you are, but people still like played through the whole thing just because of how well it was all done and how well it was paced, and like the no-cut camera thing, which I don't even know what that means necessarily, but I do know that like God of War was just an amazing game. Like, I love the combat. Like, it's not my favorite combat in a game, but it was done just so well. Like, the whole axe throwing mechanic is super fun. The difficulty, I think, is really right. Like, although obviously some of the enemies are incredibly difficult, like the Valkyries, I had so much fun fighting them despite that. And some of them were real bullshit, but they were just so much fun to fight. Like, once you finally get it, it's one of those games where you have to work at, and it's just so satisfying when you get through it because of that, because it was just well made. And like, also obviously the soundtrack is incredible as well. Like, this theme song, I think, is actually one of the weaker parts of the soundtrack. Like, it's a really good one, but I mean, some of the other songs on that soundtrack are just fucking amazing. Like, especially the boss fight ones. Like, and yeah, I think that's maybe one area that could have been improved with it. Like, because the series has a pretty high standard of boss fights, and the ones in God of War were just stellar. But yeah, I felt like there could have been maybe more of them. But what was there was awesome, and the story especially, it was just so good. Like, it's one of the best stories, I think, in gaming, especially because it takes a character that was previously one-dimensional and just makes him like so much more relatable in a way that's totally believable too. Like, I thought, oh yeah, I forgot to play gameplay of it. I thought the way they handled it was awesome, because a lot of people were worried about that, and I get why. Just because it's such a change. Like, I mean, in the first God of War, there's right away, like, he's like sleeping with random women and stuff, like he's just like a kind of an asshole. You know what I mean? Just because he's so angry. And like, I did really enjoy that. Like, I think some people just never liked Kratos. I still did, just because he's just a badass character. Like, even when he was douchebag Kratos, he was still just such a badass that it's hard not to admire him to a certain extent. But like, they managed to make him more of just like a really likable dad character in a way that makes sense. And I think even the most hardcore fans were proven wrong by. But obviously, yeah, it also is one of the best looking games on PS4. And like, let me think. Yeah, I can't really think of anything to complain about. Like, I think even the little environmental puzzles that the game has were really fun, and yeah, there's not a whole lot that's bad about it. Like, I think, oh, I've heard some people like really lambaste the fast travel system and like just the UI, and I just don't agree with that. Like, I don't really think it was that big of a deal, and I thought they were fine. Like, not the best we've ever seen, certainly. It's not like Ghost of Tsushima's fast travel system, but I still, like, I understood it. Like, it's just, It's not that like because of the no-cut camera, they kind of had to do it the way they did with fast travel, and I like that. Like I like that they stuck to what they wanted to do with it. Like I'm fine with any issues that other people have pointed out about the game. I don't know. Yeah, it's a great game. Period. It could have been higher on my list too, for sure.
Yeah, it's on my list. It's actually among my top 3 games of the generation. It's fantastic. It's excellent. I loved the God of War series, not necessarily because of Kratos before. I don't know if I disliked him, but I never liked him. He was just...
Father, she is here!
I nothinged him. But...
It's so good to see you
like I was just saying with Odyssey, I loved the ancient Greece setting.
Oh,
yeah.
Historically, so I always just loved
I'm not sure I understand what...
The whole...
Wait.
Mortal...
Where did you get those?
Rising
the arrows.
And killing gods.
Give them to me, now.
Story was...
They were a gift.
It had some bumps and weird...
These arrows are
side
dangerous.
tracks.
Wicked.
Like... Most... Like, I don't even remember. The labyrinth and doing something, and the one with... I don't remember which God of War had the little girl in the middle of the labyrinth you had to find for some reason. And then... weird things like that. Going to a random island, and I think it was God of War 3, to do something to get to Zeus. Some of that was kind of weird, and it felt... I don't know. Just some of the tangential locations in the series leading up were kind of weird, but it was all really cool. In God of War 2017, though, everything just felt good and
2018.
And right. Oh, yeah. That one, just everything felt good. It made sense to me that you would go to this location and be able to bifrost your way to different realms. Some were blocked off because Odin doesn't want you there. I kind of always thought it was for DLC, but clearly it's for a sequel.
Speak of Baldur.
Yeah.
He claims nothing.
I like that aspect, how it's there and it's believable to an extent if you know
boasting of a god.
mythology at all.
Everyone has a weakness.
Not him, I'm
I
afraid.
like how it didn't
Baldur
even
is
really
blessed with
give you any of
invulnerability
the
to all
big
threats,
names
physical
like,
or
off the
magical.
bat in
You
God
just
of
said
War
that,
1.
didn't you?
There was Ares, there was...
What is the
you
source
never
of
saw
this power?
Zeus out of
Well,
War 1,
as I recall,
think, but you
it
definitely saw
involved,
Athena. You saw Ares, you wanted to kill them.
Parts of my brain must still be
Yeah,
coming back to life.
don't remember if you
But-
saw him in
Even though
one.
it's
You might have
waking up.
seen his like eagle or something, but I know you saw him in two for
Well,
sure.
you see him in 2 almost right away.
Yeah.
But in the PS4 one, you don't really see anyone. You get hints at Thor, but you never see Thor. You see like the B or C list
Perfect. Walk
gods.
us
I mean,
near
you
the
see
bridge.
Freya. She's a pretty fucking big deal, I guess. But aside from that, you don't really see any of the major players, which is good, which is fine. And but you still saw a lot of a good amount of the mythology, like the World Serpent, who played a weirdly major role.
Yeah, I
And-
loved that. Which, yeah. Speaking of
And
which,
the Frost Giants and the Elves.
That was for the ACM.
All of that was great. I really loved that game. I loved the combat. It felt... It was weird how not weighty it felt
Yeah.
No fun anymore.
at
Yeah.
the same
Rather
time,
senseless waste
but
of precious
it
life.
was
Wouldn't you
it
agree,
was still
Bella?
a far cry from the arcadey PS2
Precisely.
ones.
Enough was enough.
But it's just
And
the
at
combat all
last,
still
Odin's
felt really
most
great. And
brilliant
the
advisor
Axe is a
became
great
determined
addition.
to
And
find a
the
more enlightened path.
spoiler
He
alert,
set about to broker a peace
when you
between the gods.
retrieve some old weapons,
major,
like,
major
But
spoiler alert,
ultimately,
because that was like,
to marry his
that was one of the
enemy.
moments that sealed the deal for me for this game. Like, that's what I think that's one of the best gaming moments in years. Like, it's so good.
That Odin had long aspired to master.
And like, I especially loved that they hid it very well. Like, I didn't hear any rumors of them coming back. So when they actually did, I mean, they foreshadow it just by, you can tell just by the look on Kratos' face and what he says when he realizes what he has to go get. And like you can tell right then, and I was just like so excited because I didn't even think of it. Like I really believed that they were just gonna, you know, keep things the way they were. So when that happened, it was so, I'm so glad that that moment wasn't taken away from me by it being spoiled ahead of time.
On a platform at the middle point of the
Yeah,
take me to it.
Especially having played the rest of the games. Yeah.
I sort of felt like it was coming. It seemed a little one-dimensional to me to just have the axe and nothing else, when in all the previous games you had just tons of weapons that you got to play with.
Yeah.
So
a lot of other games do that though, so I could.
I mean, I'm not saying that I called the Blades of Chaos right away, but it felt like something else should come besides the axe. I wasn't sure what that would be, but I don't know, a fist weapon or something like that. But getting the Blades of Chaos.
Yeah.
And the gear system wasn't overdone and not complicated or weird or anything like that.
Statue made in honor of
Yeah, I didn't know much about Norse mythology until I played this and like Hellblade, but it's really cool, and I'm really excited to see the rest of the series on PS5 now.
bit of an unpleasant.
I assume. I hope it's not another
Anyway,
Miles Morales or Horizon situation where they try to put it on PS4, but
solid stone passes
Ragnarok
through his
is
gullet.
coming.
You want me to ask him?
although I'm a little surprised they're doing that for the second game. Like I would have thought the third one would be Ragnarok, but we'll find out, I guess. Maybe they'll both be Ragnarok, but
I mean, Ragnarok just means the end of days, so it's a massive battle until the end, the world end. So who knows exactly how that goes? They don't necessarily have to build up to this giant moment like the Titans assaulting Mount Olympus in 3.
yeah.
Which was still cool as fuck.
Lads, you
Oh,
know
yeah.
me. Why
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, that's not right.
Definitely, but alright. So I guess you want to do your next one, unless that was it, which I don't think it was, because you said something about top 3, so.
No, God of War was among my top 3.
Yep.
But I think you'll recognize this.
Horizon, yep.
He knows the pain of your loss.
I mean, that was an amazing... 2017 was an amazing year for games in general.
It was.
Horizon and Breath of the Wild and Nier and Persona. But Horizon...
What is it?
Oh, nothing to be concerned about.
I loved Aloy as a character.
Yeah.
I loved
Making
the
sure
story
we're
of
heading in the right
the
direction.
world ending. I don't exactly
Listen
remember till
closely
what.
now.
I have to replay that game,
We need
especially
two
before
things to
Forbidden
get us
West.
into the
But
land of the giants.
you know,
First,
some shit
we
went
need to learn
down,
the travel
and
route
then
that opens realm
dinosaur
travel to
robots,
Jotunheim.
and you're this badass woman
Need to carve
with a
that
bow
into
who
the
just
special
fucks
game.
shit up and can sometimes take over the dinosaurs.
Correct.
And you fight Dino
Except the giants
T-Rexes.
in their infinite wisdom saw to it that no ordinary.
It's like a little
do the
boy's
job.
wet dream.
Only the tip of a magical.
Sounds gross than intended it to, but whatever. It was still a really great game. The setting was fantastic. The gameplay was fantastic. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
with the one exception being
not
melee
explain what
combat
happened to
was
Petra?
shit.
If you want to
Yeah. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense just because, you know, you're fighting giant dinosaurs, so it kind of would have to be like a little bit slow. You know, because you have to really use a lot of force, so I kind of get it.
I can look
But yeah, that was certainly not... I don't think anyone played Horizon and leaned into the melee combat any more than they needed to.
They found their
Right, it felt weird to me. I mean, it's one of the only complaints I have about the game.
I'll throw myself
It
into this
just felt
fire
weird to
if I
me
risk that freedom.
to
Let's keep that as a last resort. I'll do what I
be
can.
this like badass bow wielder, but then the second almost anything was up in your shit, you were just fucked. And it was kind of annoying considering like the setting of the game and like the tribal aspect of it, and you would think that some people, especially Aloy, would have some kind of training with like melee weapon, but even against the littlest dinosaurs like the Seeker Stone, even some of the smallest dinosaurs you don't do shit to. and you're still expected to like roll out of the way and use your bow. I mean, that's really the only complaint I have with the game, and it's not the biggest one. Everything else about that game, magnificent, fantastic. The music, the settings, the characters, the backstory, learning how the world went to shit.
Oh
the voice
yeah,
acting.
like that's one of the interesting things about the game is they started with just the basic, you know, kind of ancient human civilization with some technology and robot dinosaurs. They started with that and then wrote the story afterwards. Yet it turned out to be one of the best stories like ever in a video game, especially if you really dig into the lore. It's just crazy that they basically kind of wrote it backwards and it ended up being as good as it is. Like, and yeah, it's definitely one of my all-time favorite, probably my favorite open world game, favorite RPG like ever. Like the world, everything you said, like the world, the combat, I really like the combat a lot. Like it's just so much fun taking on these giant dinosaurs, and like other than the melee, like you said, like I think all of it is just so much fun and so stellar. Like a lot of it makes sense in like the way you you know, have so many different weapons to use that do different things, and it's like another one of those games where you can attack things the way you want to, and it's just super fun. Like, and they built an interesting world. I also love the variance of like climate it has. Like you don't have to travel too far to get from like jungle forest to desert to snowy mountaintops. Like even if it's not the most realistic thing, it's just super fun. And like I really loved like the story, like all the little details about how the old world fell and like how things have progressed since then, and like what the enemies are doing. Like I love it. Like it's one of my favorite games. And like, yeah, the soundtrack is awesome too. Like I think it's one of the better soundtracks. I don't think it gets as much credit as it deserves, but also, yeah, the voice acting is great. Aloy is an awesome character, and like it doesn't have like a ton of like super standout characters like, you know, say like a Red Dead Redemption 2, but all the characters in there are like likable, and their dialogue is for the most part pretty like natural and not, because you know how some games they kind of have like some stiff dialogue or it's like a little cringy. I didn't get too much of that, which is surprising considering how many different conversations and stuff that you have with characters in the game, just because it's an RPG. I mean, there's so many different quest givers and stuff, and like it's like I also really like the side quests. Like I thought they did a great job on those, and I really love how it's not too bloated. Like there's a lot of stuff to do, but not too much. It's very manageable, and it's also, I think, one of my favorite platinum trophies just because of how reasonable it was. Like, you didn't have to go way out of your way to do it. And although there is one missable trophy, which is kind of disappointing if you happen to miss that, but if you know ahead of time, you're fine, and then it ends up being one of the best platinum trophies that you can get. And yeah, I really love the game. I can't wait to play Horizon 2 just because of how good this one is. And it's one of those games where it was so good that I have a hard time seeing how they will be able to really top it, just because now that the cat's out of the bag of why the world is the way it is, it's like, how do they create a story as intriguing as what was here? Because, you know, it started with a mystery that has now basically been solved, so it's like, how do they match that? Like, how maybe they just tell a different type of story. You know, this is like an origin story now, and maybe the next one will be the Empire Strikes Back or Captain America 2 of this series, I hope, but we'll see. Like but it's a really stellar game. Everyone should play it. I'm gonna play it again for sure. I want to play it again on ultra hard. I'll definitely be having my whatever, what I forget the name of the suit, the one with the shield on it, but you pretty much, it's a requirement to play it on ultra hard. Yeah, actually maybe that's like my only complaint about the game is like the healing plants. Like you have to collect a shitload of them to actually build up enough to like really do a fight, like without potions or the shield outfit.
Full already.
So that can be a little discouraging, like, and also just like scavenging in general. I think the scavenging is okay, but I think maybe the crafting, like, they could make it a little quicker, even though it was pretty quick because you can do it straight from the weapon wheel. I still like feel like having to do that in the middle of a fight does kind of slow the combat down a tiny bit, but they couldn't have done it in a better way. Like, I'll say that. Like, if you were gonna do it the way they did it, where you might have to craft ammo in a fight because you ran out of it, I don't think they could have done it better with the weapon wheel slowing time, and then you just have to hold one button over the ammo you're highlighting. Like, that was really brilliant, like, and really cool the way they did that. But I would kind of hope for maybe a way to streamline it even more, just so that you're able to focus on the combat a little more than you do now. Although it's also not like that much to complain about, because the way the fights play out, the dinosaurs are so big. There are times in between, plenty of time in between when they attack for you to do that sort of thing. It's not like Doom Eternal, where you have zero time to think or do anything but fight and evade, and yeah, like, so it makes sense. At the same time, I don't know, maybe that's just my preference, but yeah, I think it would be cool if they made like or just maybe give you better satchels, because that was okay. No, that's my biggest complaint about the game, is that to get the certain ammo pouches you had to kill like rabbits and shit, and no thanks. All right, that's not for me. Even though it's a video game, I just like, I don't want to do that sort of shit, like fucking you know. But that's maybe I'm obviously in the minority in that, but I just didn't like that. So that's my only complaint about the game, is they wanted me to kill rabbits and I ain't killing rabbits.
I do now remember some awkward farming towards the end of the game that I don't know if it necessarily required you, but I was required to farm for certain materials later on to be able to craft and everything. Whereas in the beginning everything was plentiful, but later on you would just go through, I think it was healing item pretty quickly to require you to farm up some of them.
Especially if you're fighting certain enemies like the rock breakers. Man, those things were brutal. Especially because there's a good amount of time where you can't shoot at them because they're underground. But yeah, man. That was another thing I loved about the game, is the enemies were like varied and just super cool. Like the giant T-Rex, the giant pterodactyl robot thing. Like, yeah, it's just so cool.
Yep.
And gorgeous game too, even on regular PS4.
Yep.
It's a Guerrilla game, so obviously it's gonna have awesome combat and awesome graphics. That's kind of their trademark. But yeah, it's also impressive because it's the first time they made something that really wasn't a first-person shooter, and it ends up being one of the best open-world games in the business. Like, first try. Imagine what they'll do on the second one.
Ho there! I
Yep,
thought they'd send soldiers. The mighty Karja Empire
fantastic
must
game.
be more strapped than I
So
thought.
was on my list, and I'm sure it was probably on yours too.
No matter.
Yep.
Bounty
That it was
die like the rest.
not my next one, but
My ravine of death.
for a little further down the line. So I guess actually, yeah, I have to go next. This one, I think
That's why
you probably won't recognize the song, but you might be able to guess it just from knowing me. But all right, here goes.
Yes.
I can't hear it. It's cutting out of that.
You able to hear him now?
It's still cutting out a lot.
Still cutting out.
Yeah, it's funny when you're talking. It's more consistent, but when you're not, it fucks up that a lot.
That's weird. Because I put my gain all the way up and put like the phone right up to the mic. I don't know why it's still cutting out, but yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to guess it anyways. It's Metro Exodus.
I had a small list of games of songs that I wouldn't recognize, but I'd be able to pull from, knowing you, and yeah, that was one of them.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I love the Metro series. Like, it's one of my favorites ever, and I think Exodus is the best game in it. And I also
no polka. That's why I didn't get it.
Oh. Yeah, like it's I would say it's the theme song, but like yeah, the Metro doesn't really have a super recognizable theme. Like I think that's maybe one of my only complaints about the game is the music could play a bigger part. Although it's not bad, I just feel like it could have used with more. But yeah, it's another one of those games where it just sets you off, and especially Exodus particularly because it's so much more open than the other ones. But it's another one of these games where it sets you off in a world where you can play it how you want to. And this one especially, you can go guns a-blazing. I think a lot of people do that way, or you can do stealth, and it's really good both ways. Like especially with Exodus, there's like lots cool things you can do with the weapons where you can just pull out your backpack, start switching attachments on the gun, and I find it really satisfying to be able to do that because I've always like, even though I tend to stick with the same attachments, I just still like guns. Like I've always been interested in them, and it's just really fun to be able to just like see the attachments swap out. But I mean also the story, like that's probably the reason I was so drawn to the series in the first place, because it's based on a book series, and also the games, because the author really embraces the game series. Half of them are written, well actually they all are written by him, and two of them are based on, well one of them is based on the original book, obviously Metro 2033. The second one is written outside of the books, but then the books continue from the game, and then the last book leads into Metro Exodus. So it's like that's how much this guy embraces the games, is that he's letting part of the overall story of the series be only in game form, which is really, but yeah, that's besides the point. But yeah, I just love the world they crafted. I mean, anyone knows about the game, it's basically post-apocalyptic Russia after a massive nuclear war, where basically everyone is dead except for the people who survived in the Moscow metro system, because in real life it's actually the biggest nuclear bomb shelter on Earth. Like, that's actually true. It's a massive like complex of subway tunnels and stuff, and like it is built to withstand a nuclear attack. So it's just an interesting premise that they took from, and like, but then they also create like a really messed up world where there are different factions. Some of them are like horrible people to say the least, and like there's Nazis and communists and just like regular people, and there's also like a kind of merchant, or I don't know how to explain them, but they're the Hansa. They're kind of like the in-between faction that just mainly cares about trade and money and stuff. But yeah, like it's just a super interesting world, and it plays super fun. There's also like all sorts of different enemies and mutants. Like you fight a lot of mutants and humans, and like just some of the interesting things they come up with as far as enemy types, and like maybe the part of the game that separates it from everything else that it's by far the best at is atmosphere. I think it has by far the best atmosphere in any game ever. Like and especially it's impressive comparing it to like horror games, which are basically half of horror games is the is the atmosphere, because like you need to build a really dark and looming atmosphere for a game to be scary most of the time, and I feel like this game even blows all of them away. Has some of the best graphics you'll ever see in a game too. Really, I think the only way it lacks is maybe facial animations, but it's because they're actually a small studio in Ukraine, so it makes sense. But it's just a super fun game with an awesome story, lots of freedom to the player, and yeah, the atmosphere is unbeatable. Like, there are certain parts of these games that are just insane. Like, and yeah, it's just one of my favorite series, just because it's not only super interesting from a premise point of view, but also some of the lore they dig into. Like, a lot of the dialogue you hear among townspeople, well, they're not really, like, you know, the people at stations, which are basically towns, and other people you meet, like in Exodus 2, like, is ripped straight from the game. And so they tell, like, there's just tons of interesting little stories in between the main, like, epic tale of, like, what Artyom has to go through, because he really goes through hell, like, especially in the books. Like, he goes through a lot of shit. They kind of have to condense it in the games, but it's just still, like, yeah, it's one of my favorite series for a reason. I really, really love it, and I think they're going to continue. They can continue depending on, because that's the other cool thing about the games, is they have a karma system. So there are good and bad endings. So, like, it's kind of like a situation like Infamous, where there's one ending that's technically canon. You know what I mean? And that's what they continue the series on. So, yeah, like, hopefully the series can definitely continue. I'll say that much. But yeah, it's just, yeah, one of my favorites. Like, that's why it was so high on the list for me. But yeah, I hope more people play it. I think it did sell pretty well, but, like, it's not like one of the main games I think people think of as being one of the best on PS4. I would argue that it should be. Like, I would definitely say it was Game of the Year in 2019. Like, what won in 2019? I don't even remember. You remember what a lot of people... Like, I don't think people looked at Exodus enough for that. Like, I really felt like it had deserved it. Like, and not just because I'm a biased fan. Like, I really feel like it's one of the best games.
Last year was big on...
Oh, Sekiro.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
And Star Wars.
It's such a... Oh, yeah, Jedi Fallen Order. Yeah, Jedi Fallen Order is actually one of my honorable mentions. Spoiler alert. So yeah, I get it. They're very, very different games, but yeah, personally, I really feel like Metro belonged in the conversation. Like, I love this game so much, and it's another one where I played multiple times. I got the Platinum Trophy, and I had to play it 3 times, and this is not a short game. Like, at the year-end roundup the PlayStation does, where how many hours? I had, like, 130 something.
Much.
Yeah, which is a lot, considering that it's technically a linear game, not open world, and, like, you can beat it in, I think, 20 hours or something, maybe. Not sure. But it took me longer just because I always try to scavenge everything and try to find everything, and also going for the Platinum Trophy added some time on it, because there are certain things you have to do to get trophies, and yeah, like, took a few tries, but yeah, I just loved my time with it, and it's one that I can get back into at any point, just because it's one of those worlds that I just love to hang out in a video game, like, which is part of what it makes it one of my favorites. Like, when I first heard that they were going to be making massive levels, so it wasn't going to be like the first 2 games where it was just, like, kind of awesome linear levels, like, that they were going to give these massive open areas for us to explore and do things out of order if we want. I was just, like, so excited for it, just because obviously Crysis is very, very similar to that, and that's one of my favorite FPS games ever. So yeah, like, it was, like, almost kind of like the game was made for me practically. So yeah, that's why it's one of my absolute favorite PS4 games, for sure.
I knew that was coming at some point.
Yeah.
It seems cool. I remember playing Last Light a long time ago on PS3. I have the Redux collection. I think I played a little bit of 2033 on it. I
Awesome
have
game.
Exodus purchased. It's not downloaded just yet. It's one of those games that I want to go through because the setting and the story seem really cool to me. It's definitely something I want to try out at some point.
Yeah, it's also fucking gorgeous. Like, it's got like such good graphics. I love it. Even though the animations are, you can tell it's like lower budget just from the animations, but just the environment is so damn good looking in these games.
Yep. Hopefully I'll get around to playing it one of these days.
Maybe someday you'll listen to the audiobooks too, like I did. No.
Never say never. But probably never.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to like really love something to wanna. I mean, depending on who you are. Like, I don't really read books just as it's time consuming. I like audiobooks though, but yeah, so that was like definitely a good way to consume it, just because it adds so much to the story. And like, yeah, I already loved the story as it was, so it was cool to see how things were different in the game. And yeah, one of my favorites. But I think, yeah, you're next. You can play the song. Hopefully it doesn't cut out and I'll be able to guess what it is.
All right, my next one I feel is going to be a little contentious, and it's kind of cheating. It's my one cheat thing on this list because I couldn't decide. They're two similar enough games from the same developer I mean, they're radically different, but they're similar enough in a lot of ways where the deficiencies of one are made up by the strengths of the other, and I grouped them together. I think I probably like one more than the other, and we can talk about that shortly. I know you've played both of them. As for which I like better,
Oh, Last of Us.
yep. I'm grouping it honestly with Uncharted 4. I'm cheating a little bit in that regard, but just the DNA of both games are pretty similar. A lot of the themes, obviously, and what goes on are vastly different in the story and the settings and the characters, but just it's pretty obvious that Uncharted 4, I mean, Last of Us Part 1 influenced Uncharted 4 to a certain degree, and then Uncharted 4 then turned around and, well, influenced Lost Legacy, but also Last of Us 2. And I really struggled for a long time thinking which of the two I liked better. Was it Uncharted 4 or was it Last of Us 2? And I couldn't decide. I really could not decide. Uncharted, I feel like the game as a whole, Last of Us is better. I feel it plays better. I love the setting. I love everything that's going on in the game. The stealth, the more believable stealth, because the whole hiding in tall grass in Uncharted is, I get it, and Uncharted has always been a little more arcadey of a game, and Last of Us is a little bit more grounded, pun intentional. But I up to a certain point, I liked the story in Last of Us better than Uncharted 4, but as a whole package, I think Uncharted 4 is better. Like, the story is great in Uncharted 4, the characters are great, the voice acting is great, even though the voice actors are just regurgitated back into Last of Us because Naughty Dog just loves Nolan North, Troy Baker, and Laura Bailey.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. And so Uncharted 4 ended perfectly for me, whereas Last of Us left a really bad taste in my mouth.
Yep.
But honestly, everything up until that point in Last of Us just so great that it would have been the better game if the ending was a little different for me. If she didn't even try to kill Abby, if she just kind of let her down and then walked away, and then the whole fight was just nonsense.
It was stupid, yeah. But like, I even think
totally unnecessary.
I even think like letting her down is stupid too. Like, yeah, I would have hated that too. Like, but it made even less sense that she forced her into a fist fight. Like, it's like, what is the point?
They maimed and brutalized each other. I mean,
yeah.
Abby got sliced and diced by the knife. Ellie got several fingers bitten off, which prevented her from being able to play guitar again. I was yearning for as happy of an ending as Last of Us could do. Like, if they were on the farm with Dina and Dina's kid and all of that, and she had PTSD and was still struggling with a lot, but just kind of accepted it and the game ended there. Or then you saw the last couple cutscenes about the dance and then her forgiving Joel the night before he died. That probably would have ended better for me. Like, there were a lot of ending points that I just would have wanted more. San Diego as a whole was pointless to me. I realized why they did it. They wanted to drive home that lust for revenge, especially once you saw that she forgave him the night before he died. And they probably wanted you to play as Ellie again after playing so long as Abby, but just that end, just the whole it was dumb. I really didn't like it, and it didn't. I wouldn't say it ruined the game for me, but it really hurt the game for me. That's why everything else about it is fantastic, but that ending bit really kind of took it away from being better than Uncharted 4. But at the same time, Uncharted 4 is not as good in a lot of aspects, but everything as a whole is way better.
Yeah, it wasn't so much the ending that kind of like took it away from me. It was just kind of a cherry on top. What really made me hate the game is the entire thing with Abby and just the inconsistent writing of characters. Like, I felt like the game was trying to teach us a lesson that everyone in this world, this post-apocalypse, are neither purely good or purely bad, but we already knew that. And to spend 30 hours to try to nail that point home and revenge is bad, it's like, it just felt stupid to me, and like, I really did not like how they handled certain characters and stuff. Like, to try to endear us to Abby, Abby gets to pet dogs while Ellie only gets to kill them. Like, it's just like cheap little tricks like that I just really hated. And especially how they handled Joel's death. Like, they couldn't have disrespected him more. And also trying to paint him as a bad guy while ignoring that the Fireflies were bad guys too. Like, they were worse, in my opinion, because they were trying to kill an innocent girl without her consent whatsoever, and just expecting Joel to leave. And it's like, if for something that probably wouldn't even have worked. Like, they weren't even confident about that thing fixing the virus. Plus, it's like, even if you do fix the virus, like, that's not gonna save the world. That's just gonna make it so less people get turned into zombies or whatever. But the world is already fucked, and it's already also kind of recovering because they're able to build civilizations. And it's like, I just don't understand why Naughty Dog chose to kind of shit on the first game, which is why I especially hated it. I felt like it was trying to take away from me something that I really loved. The Last of Us 1 was one of my first favorite games of all time, like very high up my list, and I felt like this sequel was a complete disgrace to it. And it's like, I can't criticize the gameplay. except for the dog stuff. Like, I really don't like killing dogs, and so it was very difficult making through sections without killing them. And then they just end up making you kill one in a cutscene anyways. Well, a quick time event. So, but I would say The Last of Us 2 is better at stealth, but I think that's about it. Like, I feel like Uncharted 4 is better at pretty much everything else, but yeah.
I like the gunplay better in Last of Us.
I don't, because it's not as like immediate, which I kind of like at the same time, because I like how the gunplay is more grounded in a good way. Like, if Red Dead Redemption 2 had the gunplay of The Last of Us, it would have been a million times better than it was. Like, I think because it still has a grounded feel. You're not a super soldier. You're not like the perfect aim all the time, but it also doesn't play like a clunky, laggy piece of shit like Red Dead Redemption 2 does. Like, like I felt really that's what they should have aimed for, instead of just a mess so bad of gameplay that they had to use a lock-on system by default so that people didn't actually have to aim their guns, because doing that in actuality in the game was just like so damn difficult and just clunky, while Last of Us nailed that grounded feel of gunplay that I think that it would have, I think any game that's trying to be realistic should look at The Last of Us, because the gunplay is really fucking good while also being very realistic and just visceral. Like, the combat is super, like the melee combat is definitely better in The Last of Us 2, and the stealth for sure. Like, there's a lot of good stuff about The Last of Us Part 2, but I felt like the story and the writing of characters was such a disgrace that it's really one of my most hated games ever, just because it just angered me so much more, because it's a game that I cared about the story. Like, I really cared about the series, and so it really felt like it went out of its way to fucking just shit on the first game. And like I hated it. And also I just could not understand why they would like start out making us hate Abby and then try to make us like her in such a shitty attempt. I don't think they could have done a worse job of trying to get us to like Abby or see things from her point of view than they did. And that's why the game is a failure to me. Like, but people are very divided on that game. I think it's one of the most divisive games ever, just because of that. Like, there are people in both of our camps. Although I don't think anyone is satisfied with the ending. Most people hated the ending, even that loved the game. Still, like you said, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And also the 180s that certain characters do. Like Tommy, at first he's like, didn't even want her to go after Abby in the first place. Then after they go, lose friends, that their friends die, and she settles down with Dina and stuff. Then all of a sudden he's all gung-ho, like, you owe it to me. And like, it's just so weird, man. Like, there's a lot of inconsistencies with the character writing that just, it felt like it was there to serve the whole plot of Abby, being not such a bad person, even though she killed the guy everyone I think a lot of people loved the most in the series, Joel. Well, spoiler alert, but I think most people knows at this point. But I
mean, yeah, I never had a problem with Joel's death. It was beyond obvious it was coming. It sucked, but it was beyond obvious that it was. There is no way that The Last of Us 2 was happening without Joel dying at some point during.
There's a million ways they could have done it, or not done it, or like just done it better, like
heroically saving her, or towards the end, or you expected him to show up halfway through the game, like the trailers kind of made it seem, instead of getting taken out real early.
Yeah, real early.
But there was the second that they announced The Last of Us 2, I'm like, oh, okay, Joel's dying at some point. That sucks.
Yeah, one of my other problems with it is just like, in the first game, when the outbreak first happens, there's a family walking on the side of the road, and Joel doesn't even want to take the risk of picking them up. But then, when he meets up with Abby and saves her, meets up her group, and they're all armed, and he doesn't even have his gun out, he's just willing to like just say his name. That's what really, that's one of the things that, because there were a lot of examples of that. Like the other one was what's his name bursting through the door when they knew that there was something bad going on, and they're just immediately getting shot in the head. It's like these characters wouldn't be alive if they weren't smart, yet time and time again, to serve the purpose of giving Abby an upper hand, they make them do stupid things. And that was just a complete departure from how the first game was written, in a believable and, you know, not convenient for the plot type of way. Like there was, it was just like night and day comparing the writing of each game. And yeah, that's, yeah, I hate fucking The Last of Us 2.
It's funny. I knew this sort of discussion would come up, but for similar reasons, I love it. I love the fact that it is different and it subverted certain expectations.
I hate that phrase.
They shouldn't. They honestly never should have made a part 2 in the first place.
I agree.
But
yeah.
I feel like what we got was the best that they could do. Because you can't really have happy ending in that sort of game.
I think even just rearranging the order, the chronology of the game could have made it better.
Probably, but that would have been impossible to pull off. Because then it would... Because you would have shown off all this stuff with Ellie, and then...
I think if you played as Abby as first, even though, yeah, like you said, they show off Ellie and everyone's like, why are we playing as this random person? But at least it would be a random person instead of someone that the rest of the game made us completely hate. Like, I really wanted to stop playing the game when they made us play as Abby, and I'm not alone. Like, I think most other people did too. Like, I really feel like if they just had made it so that you play as Abby for a while, or you play as Abby, you find it, and then like Joel saves you, kind of like how it happens, and then you find out why she's there and that she kills him, and then you play as Ellie or whatever, but then actually get revenge instead of I don't know. There are other people have come up with ways that the game could have gone just by changing chronology, and I agree with them that it would have been much better that way. Like, I think the whole making you hate a character, then making you play as them for 15 hours was a massive mistake.
It was weird and risky, and it didn't always work, but I actually didn't mind it. I didn't have this deep hatred of Abby to begin with. She was kind of annoying at first, and the more I played as her, the more... I'll say it, the more I came to like her. She's not the greatest character, she's not the most likable character, but, I mean... her story made sense to me in a way that like Tommy's didn't. She was more likable to me than Tommy was. Tommy wanted revenge.
Disagree. Like...
And then he went out and did all this, he said one thing and then disappeared and, fucked over his wife and the town, even though he said, I'm not doing this, I don't want to do this. His arc was more unusual, and it was, I don't know, something about him and the way his story unfolded was worse. Whereas with Abby, it made more sense to me because you saw that hers was the doctor that he shot. You can avoid everyone in the operating room in Last of Us 1 except for the one doctor, and that was her dad.
Well, it's because he refused to get out of the way. Like, he refused to let Joel just go, even though he had a gun, and he brought a knife to a gunfight, and I just felt like he asked for it. And the other thing I didn't like is, like, they try to, like, make Ellie seem like the bad guy, that she has no remorse, yet she felt horrible when she realized that she killed Mel, who was pregnant. But then later, when Abby has a knife or a gun to Dina's throat, and then Lev says, oh, she's pregnant, Abby says, good. She literally said good when she heard that Dina was pregnant when she was about to kill her. So it's just like, I felt like the game contradicts itself. Like, well, trying to make Abby relatable and make Ellie seem bad when really it also put in things that just made the opposite true. Like, I felt like Abby is just a horrible person. And I think that's a perfect example of it, where she has zero remorse killing a person who's pregnant, while Ellie was like inconsolable to the point where she left evidence to their fucking location at the scene. Like, that's what led them to the theater, is Ellie was so inconsolable that she had killed a person who was pregnant that she drops the last thing you would want to drop at that scene, while Abby is glad that she was about to kill a pregnant person of the enemy. Like, it's just a perfect example of why I hated Abby, and like why the game is just like, its messaging is just wrong.
Tommy and Ellie did just go and kill all her friends too, so she was not in a good place. Was desperate for revenge.
Well, I mean, neither was Ellie when she killed Mel, and it was Mel's own fault. She attacked her. Like, it's, yeah, I don't know. But let's move on, because actually, it's kind of good timing, sort of.
We could talk about that for an hour.
Yeah.
To 6.
So I'm playing the next game I had on my list. Hopefully, hear the theme song. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we already talked about it a little bit. So we don't have to go over it too much. I think maybe one part that you might not mention, which I think is kind of a big deal, is the multiplayer and survival modes in Uncharted 4 are stellar. Like, I really think out of third-person games, I think it has the best multiplayer in the biz. Like, I really like it, even though I'm not that great at it. But I love the combat in the game, and the multiplayer really lets you go through that combat loop more so than the actual game does. I think that's maybe my biggest complaint about Uncharted 4, is that there's just not enough combat, not enough gunfights, and there's too much time in between them. Like, I love all it's like some people complain about like the walking or sequences where you're talking. I love that stuff. I eat that stuff up. I just think maybe the percentage of gunfights and combat and set pieces is not quite where I would like it to be. Like, I'd like it to be more like, if it had the right amount of gunfights and set pieces, like, it would be my favorite Uncharted game, and maybe even my favorite, well, one of my higher up my list of favorite PS4 games, because I really do love the game. I love the soundtrack too. But yeah, that's my only real complaint. I think it's the best story in the Uncharted series, quite easily.
I don't think I disagree.
Still some of the best graphics ever. Like, yeah, it's like, I think it's near The Last of Us 2. Like, Last of Us 2 is better, but Last of Us 2 also has that really horrible film grain filter on that Uncharted 4 does not have. So that's minus points for The Last of Us's graphics. But yeah, I mean, it's a Naughty Dog game when Naughty Dog was at the absolute best, and it's especially impressive because that game went through a lot of trouble. Like, you know, the whole thing with Amy Hennig, how they kind of had to redo the game, and they still say that was the hardest game to develop they've ever done. Yeah, I really love that game. Like,
oh yeah,
most people do.
Fantastic.
But
like I was saying, I don't know. It was hard for me to pick which one was better, and Uncharted 4 is the better complete game.
Yeah,
from start to finish. But as a whole, I like Last of Us better. But you know, I never expected a happy ending in Last of Us, but Uncharted 4 ended perfectly for me.
Oh, yeah.
It was the perfect ending. Shit happens, people make up, friends stay friends, cut 20 years in the future. You know, you see Cassie, she discovers all the shit, and you see older Drake, older Elena. Have I got some stories for you? mean, that's
Oh yeah, that was really
that's
cool.
perfect.
Also, just because of the fan service and nostalgia. But you know, because you see items from the rest of the series, I thought that was really fun. Like really cool, the little touches like that. So they, even though they the development didn't go smoothly with that game, like they couldn't have done a better job, like giving us a full package and just a really satisfying game. With really, I really love the combat. Like I love anything with grappling hooks, but especially this game, I think, is just so much fun to swing around these locations. I just wish there was more of the combat. Like I said, yeah. What was the? There's something else I was gonna say before, but I forget. So I guess we can just move on.
Fine. Yeah. Quick game.
Hell yeah.
What do we got? I doubt you'll get this, and that's fine.
Dragon Quest 11.
You really want me to pick Dragon Quest, huh?
No, I'm just trying to name a game that I wouldn't know, and that's coming to mind. I'm failing to think of.
Yeah, you're never gonna get it, and that's perfectly okay. Ironically enough, it is also a game that I haven't played at all on PS4, but it is of the era, and the one game that I thought of when I, asked you whether it was okay to include games that are of the era, but I may not have played on PS4.
Oh, Celeste? Is it Celeste?
No, that Celeste was.
You
an
said
honorable
like
mention.
Celeste? Yeah, because I was gonna say that
Yeah.
doesn't sound like it's from the Celeste soundtrack.
Hollow Knight.
Oh, okay. That's another one I only have on Switch, but I have not played at all yet.
Yeah, Hollow Knight is
Cool.
one of the best indie games, I think, of the last 7 years. And that's actually saying quite a bit, considering all of the games that came out, including Rocket League, including Celeste, including Stardew Valley. But it's beautiful. It's got beautiful music. It's one of the best Metroidvanias out there on the market, period, right now. It's pretty challenging and demanding too. It's not quite Dark Souls difficult, but some of the bosses will try your patience, and there is a certain section that's just brutally difficult. That's like a optional area that you don't really have to do.
I think I heard of it.
Yeah, it's got multiple endings. It's got multiple areas. Certain place. It's each area is distinct and different and interesting. Some people may not like it because there's a area heavy with spiders just crawling all over the place. Since it is basically in an insect kingdom, and you too play as an insect. The titular Hollow Knight, but it's such an amazing game, and everything about it is fantastic. And I've played it through a couple times on Switch, because when I want to play a Metroidvania type game, like I try Axiom Verge, but I've beaten it, but it just feels dated, and it's not as fun to play as like Ori.
I kind of like the way Axiom Verge felt, especially for a 8-bit type game. I thought it was.
I mean, it's
sweet.
not bad, but I don't know. When I have my Switch and I have Hollow Knight and I have Ori and I have Axiom Verge, I'm gonna go with Hollow Knight or Ori over Axiom Verge, which is exactly what happened not too long ago. I wanted to play a Metroidvania, and instead I picked up Ori. But the entire time I was playing it, I was like, man, this is really, really good, and I'm really enjoying myself, and the graphics are beautiful, and the music is fantastic, but man, no Hollow Knight. And Ori was one of the reasons I got an Xbox to begin with, so Hollow Knight. fucking love it. Easily one of my games of the generation. I do kind of want to get it on PS4 at some point, so I can just get trophies for it and play it again.
Yeah,
I'd say, oh, I might.
that's one I gotta dig into. Although I heard that one is actually can be kind of long, right?
Oh yeah, it's a pretty long game. I have... It's like a 20 to 30 hour game, something like that, if you're just playing through it naturally. So it's, yeah, it's...
Yeah, definitely one I gotta try. I've heard good things. But I'll play my next one briefly. Although it's a repeat. But it is my number 4. Getting through it all.
Seriously, oddly, only when you talk.
Damn, that sucks. Yeah, I should probably fix that before I play the next theme song. But what little was there, you might have been able to tell it's Horizon, so we can just move on. We already talked about it a lot, so
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
that's my number 4.
God of War was on mine. I skipped it because...
Yeah, we talked about it a ton.
Yep.
Yeah.
The next one is also one of the more recent games.
Oh, Ghost of Tsushima?
Yep.
Okay, it was cutting out a lot, but I did pick up enough to figure it out.
It was a little quiet at first, and there wasn't much music. It wasn't until
you jumped forward, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until the flute picked up that it became a little more recognizable. Yeah, I had to think about this one for a little while because I loved the game. I absolutely loved it. I had a fantastic time from beginning to end. Sometimes when you're playing a game and you're getting close to the platinum and you're just feeling burned out, you're just kind of wanting to get over the hump and finish the game or finish what you're doing and get that platinum or whatever. I felt none of that with Ghost of Tsushima at all. Like almost beginning to end, the game was enjoyable. The side stuff wasn't boring and didn't drag for me. Everything was enjoyable. I got the platinum and I still wanted to play it, but I just didn't have a whole lot left to do at that point, which was a bummer. And I had to think about I had to sit there and think whether I wanted to put it on my list because of recency bias, because I did just play it a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I really don't think that's the case. I truly enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima a lot. I don't know if I like it better than God of War, which we talked about earlier, or some of my previous games, but it is unquestionably one of my top games of the generation, because what else is there to say? Just about every moment of the game from beginning to end, side quests.
Oh yeah, the side quests are awesome. Like, they're so good.
Everything about it was just enjoyable to play, and I can't think of anything bad about the game, really.
Yeah, me neither.
Except
like, I think maybe like
parry timing is a little awkward
weird sometimes. Yeah.
And then standoff timing is also really weird, and the reaction to that gets progressively more difficult, even though the original reaction time to it is like half a second, it feels like. So it gets almost brutally unfair towards the game when you're fighting the most advanced of enemies, and it feels very inconsistent. But other than also sometimes the way the camera pans is bullshit and you can't see when an attack is coming, but That's not.
Oh yeah, that doesn't.
That's not an everyday
that didn't
thing.
happen super often, but like,
Yeah.
I had zero problem with there not being a lock-on camera. Like some people whined
Oh, yeah.
about that. I thought it was fine, and I thought it made sense too. But
You're not going to be able to. You're not going to be effective locking on if there's shit behind you attacking you.
yeah, especially when you might have to switch quickly between enemies, I feel like a lock-on system probably would have been annoying. Like, but yeah, like I really loved the game too. That it's one of my honorable mentions. But yeah, the story was really cool, and like, yeah, like you said, the side quests are just kick-ass, and like also like there's maybe some parts where I felt like a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that was on that, even though I felt like it was separated really well so that you're not completely overwhelmed by the map. But like, remember at certain points I was like, man, I don't know, it's gonna take a long time to get through this. But then by the end I was actually knowing that I'm almost done. Like I was almost like kind of like, man, I'm gonna miss this game, like fucking
Yep.
it's really, really good, like, and way bigger than I expected it to be. But yeah, like I think it's gonna be like definitely, I think probably at the top of most people's list, and or you know, on most people's list for like the best games on PS4 that everyone should play. I certainly think it's better than some other like Days Gone. I wouldn't say it's better than God of War.
No.
Or Uncharted 4. Like I think it doesn't have a lot wrong with it, and it's really good, but I also think it's not quite as spectacular as some of the other games are, which is why it's only on my honorable mentions.
I
But
can definitely see that.
except for like fast travel, obviously it's got some of the best loading times in fast travel ever, and just convenience. I feel like they really did some awesome things with just making the game convenient for players, like, and not, you know, like just helping us find collectibles with certain things, and like I loved that. Like it respected our time, and even though it took a lot of our time at the same time, like, so yeah, I loved Ghost of Tsushima.
Sucker Punch learned their lesson, because missing the collectible sparks or whatever they were in Infamous 1 was the worst thing ever. If you missed one, there was no way
to know where it was. Yeah.
So if you were following maps
imagine.
or something like that, because there were like 350 of them or something like that. There were a lot.
There was a lot.
So if you were following a map and you missed one, you were fucked. That was game over for you. You were probably hours away from finding that one, and depending on if you had the patience, it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it for me. Thankfully, back in those days, you could save file share just fine. So I downloaded a save file off the internet with 349 out of 350 of the little whatever they were, and they told you exactly where the last one was. That's how I got my platinum.
Yeah.
I got everything else in that game except for that one. And then ever since then, they gave you a ping system to help you find collectibles, no matter how far they were, which was good. Infamous 2 did it. I don't remember exactly what Infamous Second Son did it, but it was something along those lines too. So Ghost of Tsushima continued that trend and gave you the option of being able to find collectibles through gameplay means, like forced. Like the guiding wind could point you in the direction of stuff, but it also had the alternative means, like the foxes will take you to shrines, and then that's a good gameplay feature. And then the little yellow bird,
awesome.
will the little yellow birds, you would come across them, and they would take you to undiscovered quests or question marks on the map. And then I think when you beat the game, all the question marks just become available to you anyways. I can't know that for sure. I got most of them before I even, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that was the case because the few that I missed suddenly just popped up in the game.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I don't know if you noticed, but at the end of the game, after you do the final mission, you wake up in a little hut. there's actually like a table with a bunch of like Easter eggs to other PlayStation series, which is really, really cool.
Oh, I did not notice that.
No, oh, there's a tall neck. It's all origami things for the most part. But yeah, there's a tall neck for Horizon. There's a little car for Gran Turismo. There's a motorcycle for Days Gone. There's there's Ratchet's like head. There's an origami of Gaius from Shadow of the Colossus. There's an axe for God of War. A guitar for Last of Us 2. A little paintbrush for Concrete Genie. You know the Ludens guy from Death Stranding, or for just Kojima Productions logo? There's that. There's a little imp thing that's from Dreams. There's a baseball and bat, obviously for MLB The Show, and then I think some other logo. I think that might be for Sony London or something. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that was a cool touch. But all right, my next one. I'm gonna try to make sure you can hear it, and I did like skip ahead to a louder part of the song. But yeah, let me just lower the gate just to make sure that you're actually able to hear this one. And I did shut off the thing in Discord, the automatic whatever, so hopefully that doesn't block you being able to hear it too. But you were able to hear it, right?
Yeah, I got it after approximately 1 second. Dreams, right?
Another predictable one from me. Yeah, like this is it's a game I've already played so many times, and it's a game I'm going to continue to play for a long time just because it is one of my absolute favorite games for a million different reasons. Obviously the gameplay, it's my favorite first-person shooter. It's like my favorite combat in any game. Similar to some of the other ones on the list, it's one of those games where it gives you a lot of tools to deal with the challenges that you're going to face in the game. Amazing soundtrack, amazing lore and story, which is kind of surprising for a Doom game. And a shooter in general, but I just really bought into it, really loved it. I really love Doomslayer as a character as much as like almost anything, even though he doesn't even really speak, or one of the rare times he did speak, he sounded half retarded, like fucking huge guts, like fucking although rip and tear is still an awesome motto, but like it's just like one of those games, kind of like the God of War games, of the old ones at least, especially, where the game just makes you feel like the ultimate badass, and it's just a power trip, and is unbelievably fun in the moment-to-moment gameplay, while also having really good pacing. Like, it's not 100%, like when you're in a fight, yes, it's 100%, you need to be on your toes 100% of the time, but then also the in-between stuff where you're looking for like just ammo or collectibles or secrets, it's paced really well. And it also has one of my other absolute favorite things in video games, especially first-person video games, which is platforming. I love first-person platforming, and it has some really cool first-person platforming. I still think it could have more, but yeah, what is there is really fun. And also it's like a great looking game, performs really well. Like, I think id Software really gets what people love about the game. I also really like battle mode. Like, even though battle mode will frustrate the shit out of me sometimes, it's still a wicked addictive and fun mode, and it gets me going more than most games do. Like it gets the heart pumping, because it's like I can't play it without getting competitive, except for when I'm playing as demons, just because it's so heavily favored for the demons that you don't even really need to play like full try hard mode to win. Well, when you're the Slayer, you really do, because it's just wicked unfair to the Slayer. But that also makes it kind of more exciting to play and just more addictive. But yeah, I can't wait for the DLC. I want to keep getting better. Like, that's one of the other reasons that I love the game so much, is it's so satisfying just to play through and just like constantly improve, or not. Like, if you take time in between playing it, obviously you get worse, but it's like kind of like riding a bike. It's a little bit of time and you'll be back where you were, hopefully, or hopefully even better. I also can't wait for it to come out on the Switch, just so I can play it mobile, and even though that's gonna be a lot worse of a version for sure, just kind of like 2016 was, just because the frame rate and blurry graphics, but even still, it's such a good game that I still want to play it on even in the worst way. So yeah, love it. Can't wait to see where the series goes, or you know, what happens with the DLC. And it's just a game I'm going to continuously play, just because the combat loop is just so damn satisfying. Like, it's just so much fun. Like, also, I can't wait for more master levels, and yeah, it's just like everything I hoped it would be, and then some. Like, I had high hopes after 2016. It kind of ruined 2016 for me, because it's just so good. Like, it's such a good game, and I think it's like one of the best sequels ever made for any game. And like, I know you mentioned recency bias for, I don't think it's that at all with this game. Just because, unlike maybe some other games where, like, you know, the story is the focus, I'll like replay those just because I want to re-experience it. But eventually I can kind of get burnt out on them. This one, it's the combat that's the hook. So like, I can't imagine, even though I've already played it 6 times, I cannot imagine ever getting sick of it. Like, I just think I'll always, until they make, you know, another Doom and it makes this one feel obsolete like this one did to 2016, I don't think I'm gonna stop playing this. Like, it's always gonna be a game I'm gonna be willing and desiring to hop back into, just to test my skills, kill some demons, run around like a maniac, and just have a boatload of fun. Like, there's a reason why it's my favorite first-person shooter, and very nearly my favorite PS4 game overall, which says a lot. But yeah.
Yep, I knew it was coming at some point. Because you just haven't been able to shut up about it all year long.
I never will.
It's a great game. I don't like it as much as you, but it was a fantastic game. And
yeah, it's when you kind of have to get like into the whole idea of like wanting to get better and wanting to play at the highest. Like, I really feel like it's meant to be played on Nightmare. Like, because it changes I mean, it's kind of like how I feel about The Last of Us, where like I only want to play it on survival mode now, just because I feel like it's much more satisfying, and it really comes into its own and just changes the gameplay when the difficulty is higher. Like, because it really forces you into just, you know, using everything you have at your disposal and also thinking on your feet. It's so addictive. Like, and that's something that I love about some other genres of games that I'm into, where it's just like I love the satisfaction of like getting into something where I can constantly be improving and constantly challenged. And if that doesn't appeal to you or hook you right away, I can totally see why people wouldn't love it quite as much as I do.
When I play first-person shooters, I tend to be a little more careful and slow and methodical in the way I play, and it kind of bothered me in a good way that I had to play the exact opposite with Doom.
I was the same way. Like, I used to actually really suck at 2016 until I just learned that you just gotta keep moving. Like, because I was so used to playing Call of Duty campaigns, you know. So
Right.
I totally get where you're coming from.
But it was good. It was appreciative and enjoyable to just subvert, but just do things completely different.
Yeah, it's pretty unique as far as first-person shooters goes these days. Like, there's some that are trying to harken back to, but there's a more like indies. This is one of the only AAA shooters that are trying to go back to that kind of philosophy of arena shooters of the past. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Guess you can try your next one. See if I can guess it.
I'm pretty sure you'll be able to get it. It's not super difficult.
Sounds very familiar. What the?
I know you played it.
Yeah.
You played it not that long ago.
Oh, Nier Automata?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yep. When I said 2017 was a fin,
I knew
one
it
of the
sounded
best.
familiar, yeah.
Nier is up there with God of War among my top games of the generation. To me, the gameplay, the combat is pretty good. It's not the greatest. It's still pretty enjoyable, especially if you find a weapon that you like, stick with. I could see where it's also not that great to a lot of people, because it's basically running around dodging bullet hell type of projectiles while shooting an endless stream of your own bullets at an enemy, especially bosses, while dodging all over the place and slashing and doing some combos and stuff like that, but generally trying to dodge, slash, and shoot at the same time. For me, though, it was the music, which is unbelievable, and the story, which starts off really slow at first, but then you beat the one chapter, and then you beat the second chapter, and then the third, and shit just kind of
Well,
starts spiraling.
not even like chapters, like playthroughs.
Character arcs.
Yeah.
Because you play as 2B, and then you quote-unquote beat the game, and then you play through it as 9S with certain different perspectives and abilities. But then you get more to him, and then shit hits the fan where you find out that the humans are dead and the machine virus is taking over the bunker and everyone's going crazy, and 2B gets infected, so she passes her pod on to A the other
A2?
android. Was it
Was it A2? Can't remember.
Okay.
There's A2B, 9S, and I want to say A2, yeah.
A2 sounds right. I just didn't. It sounded weird in my head because of 2B, but we'll go with A2. And then it just, the whole game kind of gets blown open. Like, you're trying to do all this, but it's all for nothing because the humans are dead. The virus, the machines took
Spoiler
over.
alert.
Well, it's just been spoilers nonstop. Joel dies. Just the way the story unfolded in that particular way, redundant, just struck a chord with me, and I loved every moment of it. And the music helped. The characters, while at first unlikable and dumb, and some of the secondary characters are kind of dumb, but you have like the creepy amusement park full of machines, and then with the music, which is I just found haunting in a good way. And then you found the robot village where they're all trying to be sentient and good, but then the machines go crazy there and the village gets slaughtered, which is really fucked up. You have the biblical type of undertones, obviously with Adam and Eve. And then you have a character like 9S who's fine and seems kind of generic and a goody boy throughout the whole game, but the second 2B dies, he just goes off the fucking rails and turns into a monster, basically trying to destroy everything in his path. And then A2, while being the wild card, kind of gets grounded after she gets the pod from 2B. And then they just they're at odds with each other for the rest of the game, and then it just, I don't know what else to say, because I could talk about it forever, including deleting your save file at the end to help other people through the bullet hell credits, which is really wild and out there too, although it's kind of lessened by the fact that you could back up your save on the cloud, which is exactly what I did. I just wanted to see what would happen and if it really would delete your shit. But just from beginning to the very end, that game was incredible. The only thing I didn't know, the combat, like I said, was a little, not the greatest, but I mean, it's standard platinum fare. Getting some of the endings was just dumb, which is why it was hilarious and amazing that you could just buy them in game. Like straight up, you could buy certain trophies if you didn't want to deal with them.
That's pretty cool, I think. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so that you said you hated the term subverting expectations, but this game did it quite a bit to varying degrees.
I think it did it in a good way. I just hate it when things try to subvert, like they try to use that as that instead of also writing a good story. Like I felt like The Last Jedi and I forget what else recently other than The Last of Us 2 tried to do that, and they just did it in a shitty way and kind of ruined the idea. Well, actually a lot of the stuff I love in movies and stuff is stuff with big major twists, like the Usual Suspects and some of M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's movies. Those are movies that subvert expectations, and I loved it. It's just that sometimes I feel like you have to do more than that. So I hate the term just because of how it's been used recently, but I don't hate the concept. Yeah,
I think Nier nailed it. To me, it did. It's especially because of even with gameplay, because it's a third-person action game, hack and slash game, but then it turned into a overhead shmup game.
Yeah.
And then it occasionally shifted to a 2D platformer.
Yeah.
And then you had some of the hacking mini games where it became almost like puzzles and stuff like that. It had a lot going on with it, and not all of it was successful, but to me, all of it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I liked the gameplay more than I expected, just because I'm not the biggest fan of Platinum's combat. I feel like a lot of the games feel really stiff and stilted. I've just never been a fan of their combat systems in games, but this one I actually had fun with. And what I wasn't as impressed with as maybe other people is the story and the music. It was one of those kind of cool stories where where they discuss what it means to be human, and can robots or AIs be considered a real life. And it also got a little convoluted at points and hard to follow. And I just didn't buy into it a ton. I did like it. I'm glad I played it. I do think it's a good game. I just didn't love it. And even the music, I feel like there's some really awesome tracks, but then there's also a lot that are just kind of they're all right. It's it's kind of reminds me of Doom 2016's soundtrack, where there's a couple really amazing songs and then a lot of stuff that either isn't, well, wouldn't say anything, and I don't remember anything in Nier being not good, but you know, maybe some stuff that I just wasn't, you know, as impressed by as like some of the other songs. But a very interesting game, I'd say. Like it's cool. I'm glad I played it, but probably not one that I play again or would make really any of my lists, I guess. But it's cool.
I mean,
better than I thought it would be.
I think it was my game of the year that year for PlayStation outside of Breath of the Wild. But I mean, just I loved everything about it. It was incredible, and if it wasn't, it's even better than Horizon to me, and that's saying quite a lot. It's among my favorite games of the generation.
Cool.
I think we're almost at the end here.
We are. Yeah. Okay. Next one. I don't think you're gonna recognize the music. You might be able to guess just from knowing me. But this is actually like sort of like a theme song of the entire series that they kind of redid for the latest game and like intro movie, basically. But well, that gives away that it's a PlayStation exclusive right there. Yeah, I'm guessing you don't got it.
I have no idea at all, but I'm just gonna go on a limb and say The Last Guardian.
No.
Oh.
Nope. We're on number 2. It's Gran Turismo Sport.
Really?
Yep.
I wanted to say that, but that just sounded so not race music like. I was expecting.
Oh yeah, well that's Gran Turismo for you.
Or synth or something like that.
Yeah, Gran Turismo has a lot of like jazz and like some classical music, but that's like kind of like a remix of Moon Over Castle, which has like been the theme song of Gran Turismo for a long time, kind of. But yeah, like this is the game I've possibly played the most of ever. Like it's either this or Gran Turismo PSP. It's hard to say. But like every year when PlayStation does their little stats things, even in 2017 when it had only been out for 2 months, it was by far my most played game. I think that year I had like close to 300 hours just in 2 months alone. The next one was I think Horizon, and that was like 180 hours or something, or I forget what. Well, actually I think the next one was Assetto Corsa. So it's funny, two racing games dominating my playtime, but yeah, it's like I think it's the best Gran Turismo in the series. I think in some ways, some obvious ways, it's the best racing game ever, like graphically and especially multiplayer wise. It's my favorite multiplayer game ever, easily. And it's, you know, one of those games like I was mentioning with Doom where it's so satisfying to just get really into and just constantly try to improve. And especially with the racing game, it's one of those games where you can never reach the limit. Like even the best guys in the world are always able to get even better. There's really like no end to it. It just like takes time and practice, and like it's one of the most exciting games to play because of the multiplayer. Like when you're in a tight race and like just really competitive, there's not much that will like get my heart pumping as good as this game does. And it's like such a satisfying feeling when you like win out a battle. Like it's why like people around the world just love racing in general. that's what people like live for. And like it's funny because before GT Sport, the series to me was kind of like just like a cool game to collect cars and just to test drive. Like I wasn't as competitive about it. Like I didn't really care about multiplayer as much, just because sometimes like the games were like fucked up by hackers or just like people that practiced like all the time, and I just wasn't into that. I was like, man, I don't really want to just drive the same track and same car all the time unless I was trying to do something specific. So I was like, I always kind of just like to hop from car to car, and GT Sport changed that and got me just way into it. Like at certain points I was trying to do my best in the tournaments, the online tournaments that GT Sport does. Like I did pretty well in a couple of the exhibition tournaments. There were a couple races where I like punched well above my weight class, and those are like moments that, like, you know, some of my favorite moments from gaming, period. Like, and it's just stuff that I did. Like there's not a lot of games where that is the case. Like a lot of times it's like, you know, favorite moments of games like Kratos going back to, you know, get the old blades, you know, that's a special moment. But that's like something constructed by someone else. Gran Turismo, some of my races, those are like just as like satisfying and amazing moments for me, and it's just because I did well, like, and just raced better than I usually can. And it's just something unique to racing games, I think. Like I guess I can see it in like other genres, but like I just have always loved racing games. I mean, really, the reason I am playing so many video games today is because of Gran Turismo. Like getting a PSP for super cheap from a friend got me back into gaming, because for many years I didn't really play. Like I didn't really touch my PS2, and getting way into Gran Turismo on PSP like made me so, like, I getting a PS3 to get GT Gran Turismo 5 was like top priority. And then from that point I started playing other games, and the rest is history. Now I have like hundreds of PS4 games and whatever, and I give most of the credit to the Gran Turismo series, and Sport is the best one, I think. Like also they improved a lot of stuff, like just UI, like the quality of the cars, because they did have the thing on GT5 and 6 where they had PS2 cars. Just instead of getting rid of them, they kept them on, and like, you know, they got rid of that with Sport. But also they finally got rid of what Gran Turismo used to be made fun of the most for, which is the engine sounds. Like I never agreed with it, but a lot of people compared it to vacuum cleaners, and it's like, I've never heard a vacuum cleaner that sounded like that. But with GT Sport, they completely fixed that, and now they have some of the best car sounds ever. And like, that's something I care about. Like I love the way that certain cars sound. It's why I hate electric cars. I'll just never get into a car that doesn't sound like an engine. Like, to me, that just takes the excitement completely out of it. Not to mention they're heavy, they handle like shit. They don't have gears, so that's another thing that takes the fun out of it. Yeah, fuck Tesla, although Elon Musk is awesome, I love him, but I just hate electric cars, and I do not look forward to a day where we're all driving them. Like, I will do whatever I can to just stay in an internal combustion car, because they're just so much better. But that's completely besides the point. I love Gran Turismo Sport and racing simulators in general. It's not the best on the physics aspect, but it does have really good force feedback for steering wheel users. The VR mode is cool, but could be so much better. Like, if you could play the entire game, I would be even more in VR. I would be even more into it, like, just because that was one of the maybe the things that held me back with Gran Turismo in the past, is just judging, you know, distance and, you know, when you need to brake. It's harder to do if you're looking at a flat screen, while if you're in VR, it's just much easier to have. You have a much better perspective of where you are, and your depth perception is a million times better. Even with how blurry PSVR can be, it's still like just night and day. And yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with GT7 because they better not release it without full VR support, but we'll see. But yeah, that's one I'm guessing is not on your list.
Has that been teased?
They haven't talked about. They've barely talked about PSVR on PS5 at all, other than saying that the current PSVR will be supported. So yeah, they haven't shown much. But
I mean,
oh, do you mean GT7?
Yeah, I feel like it was.
It was on one of the directs. Yeah, the first
like, sizzle reel. Hey, this is coming.
Oh no, there was gameplay. Like the second.
Really?
Yeah, the PS5 first like big announcement around E3 time. It was like the second trailer.
I did not remember that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like the second trailer on
racing games.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see about the VR because they haven't really talked about VR with PS5 at all. To the point where the HD camera doesn't support PSVR. You need the PS4 camera and adapter.
I assume it'll support the new VR unit, but we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, Gran Turismo is not on my list. I did play Gran Turismo 2 on PS2 a long time ago.
Huh, cool. There's like, yeah, I played it, but I did not have a PS1. Oh, you mean Gran Turismo 3? Because that was the one on PS2 and 4.
Maybe
2 was on PS1.
2 on PS1, I think it was just Gran Turismo 2.
2 discs.
This was 90s, so fuck if I remember anything. 20-something years ago.
It's probably Gran Turismo 2 then. I have played it, but I didn't get into the series until Gran Turismo 3. I remember tying a rubber band around a button because there was a race that was like, I don't know, 200 lap race. But if you did it with a certain car, you didn't even need to steer. You just needed the thing to hold down the accelerator button. You come back in 2 hours and have a brand new free F1 car.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, we are in the end game, folks. I don't know if you'll probably recognize it.
Thanks, Steven Strange.
You're welcome. Rhodey.
I am pretty black.
That you are. I will. You may not get it, but you'll probably get it because I won't ever shut up about this game. This is my Doom Eternal, except I've been talking about it for like 7 years. It's kind of cheating too.
Final Fantasy 14.
It's kind of cheating because the game has been going on for 7 years now on PC and PS3 and all that.
But it was so bad, like when it was on PS3, that no one really gave a shit about that version. So
actually, no, it was really bad on PC that they didn't release the PS3 version, and it wasn't until they remade the game that A Realm Reborn came out on PS3.
Yeah.
Which is the current iteration of the game. But I'm specifically talking about the newest expansion, which is Shadowbringer.
Oh, okay.
Which came out last year. And I mean, it's one of those stupid things where I talk about it all the time, and people who play it love it.
Yep.
And people who don't play it just don't get it. But it's one of the best Final Fantasy stories, period. It's among my favorite game stories, period.
I'm having deja vu here. Because this is like this exact same thing that happens on the official PlayStation podcast, because there's a dude who's like literally says the exact same shit that you do.
Exactly. It's one of those things where if you play it, you're in the know.
Yep.
And if you don't, you have no idea what we're talking about. But I'm not even joking. It takes it requires a lot of build-up and backstory Like, there are plot points in Shadowbringers that popped up in 2014. Like, there's a major plot point in 2014 revolving the 24-person raid then that was brought to the forefront in Shadowbringers in 2019. There was plot points in the first expansion, Heaven's Ward, that was in 2015, 2016, that bore fruit in Shadowbringers. So they've been building up to the story of this for years. And it's convoluted in a way that ultimately makes sense. And it's deep, and it connects so many plot points from the last 7 years of the game. I mean, when it comes to the MMO aspects, you love it or you hate it. You can play most of it by yourself. You do have to do some group-related things with a bunch of people. But the music, the gameplay, the world, the characters, the voice acting, the story are incredible. I've been lauding the game forever, especially Shadowbringers last year. The story just has been, obviously, it being an MMO, the story never stops, and it's been continuing for the last year plus, and it's the current expansion story is concluding. It's done now, basically, and you're now getting lead up into the next expansion's story. You're getting those breadcrumbs, but everything about Shadowbringers is fantastic, and it's kind of in a weird place because it's part of a game that's been existing for a long time, but it's also been a game that I've been playing for since PS3. Got the upgrade to PS4, and I've been playing it since PS4 launched. But specifically, Shadowbringers is, I'm not even joking, one of the best video game stories I've had, from the beginning of the expansion to, you know, the quote-unquote cutoff point at the end of the first patch. You know, the base expansion patch without the supplementary after the story patches that have gone on. That chunk of story is beyond phenomenal.
How are they, like, the cutscenes?
They're honestly pretty good. I mean, you have to like the way the game looks currently to appreciate that, and some of it does get ruined occasionally because it's all rendered in-game. You don't have the traditional, like, CG cutscene, and you don't necessarily have even, like, in-game rendered cutscenes that fade into gameplay kind of deal. It's almost like the way your character is just plays in the cutscene kind of deal and interacts with characters and what's going on. And it's a little wonky sometimes, but it has to account for certain races and classes and stuff like that. And it always gets a little weird because you're a mute, because they just don't have 1,000 voice actors for all the different voice types, characters and races and actors and stuff like that. But they did include, like, a more sensical means of responding and interacting with cutscenes, with dialogue options that are reflected in the cutscenes themselves. So that's good. But basically, the way the game plays is the way the cutscene. So you either like that or you don't. They're not phenomenal, and it's not the best looking game anymore. It is based on a 10-year-old game, and it's showing its age now. Hopefully, it'll look better on PS5, but it's still, you know,
I'm sure it looks better than the beta did. I actually found footage from the beta of it on PS4 that I recorded. I also found Rocket League beta footage too on here while we were doing this, but yeah. I'm sure it improved beyond the beta?
Oh, it was almost unplayable on PS3. So on PS4, it's actually been a playable game.
Yeah.
The single player on PS3 was, or the single player parts were fine, but the second you tried doing anything with more than 4 people, it was your PS4 just bloated.
Nice. Frodo Swaggins just ran by me in the game, and my character's name was Knobhead.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think since then I changed my character. I'm now a cute dragon girl.
Yeah, I was some kind of an archer. I remember like when I played the beta, I couldn't figure out how to do anything in like the battles.
Yeah, the battles are pretty awful in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, because you have so little to do. But they get progressively better as you level up. So you get more abilities, you get more options too with classes that you can be. You can only be the couple base ones, and later on you could be dark machinist, which is a gun user, red mage, samurai, ninja. It greatly expands the classes that you can be, and I've been gushing about it for years, and I will continue to gush about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll play the next theme song. Hopefully it doesn't. And I knew it would do that.
This
Trying
is
to
the
pick
last
up
one?
later in the game. Yeah, for me, yes. This is my last one. Come on, you fucking. There.
Trico singing?
No. Trico, yeah, he has a deeper voice than that. But yeah, you don't even need to know the theme song to guess what it is at this point.
I was waiting for it, and I haven't heard it yet, so I didn't even need you to play the song. I knew it was coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty much anyone who knows me. It's another one that I never shut up about, but it's for good reason. Like, it's my favorite game, and it's hard to even put into words. Like, it's like something that I kind of look for in any form of entertainment. Like, it's like a feeling of just like, I don't even know how to explain it. I don't know what the word would be, but like satisfaction, joy, euphoria, I don't know, but it's like anything you experience that's just really, really amazing, and nothing else has delivered it more than this game. It's, if you try to explain the gameplay, it's hard to even put into a category. It's not even really a genre, so it's a pretty unique game. But like, yeah, I guess like there's environmental puzzles, there's platforming, but what it really boils down to is you help save the life of a giant animal, he does vice versa, and you go on an absolutely insane adventure to escape this strange and mysterious place that you're both kind of trapped in. And it just goes different places. There's like enough amount of answers while also being mysterious, like, and it ends in like such an amazing way. Like, also the music is just spectacular. Like, I love the music because it really just nails the emotions of each scene that it's put to. And yeah, I just can't, it's hard to even put into words like how much I care about this game, how much I love it. I mean, although if you've like looked around my apartment, you might be able to see, because like like my PS4s, both of them have the Last Guardian skins on it, and PS5 is kind of perfect for it too. But like, I like it. A lot of people love Shadow of the Colossus. I think that's a lot of people's favorite PS2 game, and I certainly loved it myself, which is why I wanted to play this game. But my expectations were not that high. Like, it was far from my most anticipated game that year. And which is like partially led to me just being so blown away by it. Like, I've never loved the game the way that I love this thing. Like, or a character either. Like, I fucking love Trico. He's the fucking man. He's a badass. Well, also the game obviously shows a lot of his vulnerability, and it's another one of those games with the crazy awesome atmosphere and just an amazing world building. And yeah, it's just my favorite game ever, and probably will continue to be that way for a while. It's just like a really special game to me, and I try to only play it once a year pretty much, if I can help it, just because it makes the impact of it be that much more each time I play it. Just because I like to keep it fresh, like, and it's just so much fun to re-experience. Like, even listening to the music fucking just brings me right back, and yeah, I love it. I'll never shut up about it, ever. And I think it'll be pretty cool on PS5 if they do a patch. They probably won't, but at least like it'll iron out the very few performance issues that the game has, mainly just in outdoor areas. It's really the only time it's an issue. And so yeah, it's kind of because I typically play it again on December 6th, because that's when the game came out. And it's kind of good that PS5 comes out before that, because that means I'll be using my PS5 to play it again, assuming the backwards compatibility works. But it would be kind of real fucked up and unlucky if this game is in the 1%. You know what I mean?
Isn't it part of the Instant Game Collection?
Oh yeah.
So
it's a guarantee then. Yeah, never mind.
Yep. You don't even have to put in a disc. You can just redeem it.
Oh yeah, true that. Because I do still have the disc version. So yeah, that's nice.
Yep.
I'll own it forever now. But yeah, that's my number one. I think your number one was Final Fantasy 14, right?
Again, I don't necessarily have number ones. I do have one more.
Oh yeah, I forgot honorable mentions. Oh, and then my real number one, Knack.
I do love Knack.
I like it too. People make fun of it, and I don't like that.
It's not the greatest game, but it's not the worst game.
It's nowhere near as bad as people say. It's not even a bad game. It's just not an amazing. I wouldn't. I actually really liked Rise. Did you play Rise?
No, I just remember it from it being Connect only.
Wait, what?
When Rise first came out, it was Connect.
Wait, are we thinking of the same game?
Rise, Son of Rome.
Connect.
I can't remember.
That didn't have anything to do with Connect.
It may have been up until like the very end, but it was
I don't
developed
remember
as a
that.
Connect-only game to showcase the fact that Connect was forced with Xbox One. I don't think
so.
I'm pretty sure it was either developed to be Connect exclusive, or it actually launched that way and then was changed after a certain amount of time because everyone hated Connect. So Microsoft just kind of pretended it never existed, and then they ported it. I can't remember which it was. Either it was Connect, and then they changed it so.
It was. I do see something that it was like an Xbox 360 Connect prototype. Yeah, okay. I never knew about any of that.
At one point, it was a Kinect game, but I can't remember if they changed it before or after release to work with a controller. Once the Kinect backlash began.
It worked really well on a controller. Like that and Quantum Break are my favorite Xbox exclusives from this generation, which doesn't say a whole lot, but I don't think they get enough credit. But Rise, I really liked it. Like, it was, for a hack and slash game, I thought it was like really fun on the combat side, and just told a pretty cool story. And it looked great because it's made by Crytek. But yeah, I like Rise, and I like Neck. But anyways, we were gonna do our honorable mentions, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't have music for any of this.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't gonna do that. We're just gonna go through the list. We already talked about Ghost of Tsushima. That was one of mine. We didn't talk much about Jedi Fallen Order, but it's like after I beat it, I actually came to appreciate it more. Even while playing Ghost of Tsushima, like, to be honest, I kind of found myself like liking Jedi Fallen Order's combat and gameplay more than Ghost of Tsushima. I also really loved the story in Jedi Fallen Order. I thought it was a really great game and one of the best Star Wars stories in like years.
Yeah, I totally agree. Except for the combat, something about it I just didn't like. It was trying too hard to be kind of like Dark Souls to me. I mean, I hate that comparison. This game is like Dark Souls, but straight up, with the way the game worked, the combat, you have your experience, you die, you leave your experience until you go back to it.
Yeah, like some of the inconvenient aspects of it, I agree, yeah.
The combat was faster. It was a little more Bloodborne-like in its combat, but it still kind of felt From Software-like to me, which isn't a bad thing. Just something about the way the lightsabers worked was simultaneously good and weird in a bad way. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
It felt a little off, but it still felt good.
Yeah, there was some stuff that was off, but like I also kind of felt that way about Ghost of Tsushima too, and I didn't like the inconvenient aspects of it, especially like the lack of fast travel. I hated that, especially when trying to get collectibles and stuff or whatever, or just like trying to go to places you hadn't gone before. But I did really love the game, and I think they can do better next time around. But my next one is another predictable one for me. It's like one of those games that I love that aren't very popular, but Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Like I said before, I love first-person platforming, and now this game got unfairly like kind of hate on just because it went to the open world formula, which a lot of people were sick of at the time, and I just completely disagree with it because I feel like parkour lends itself 100% to open world design, and even the linear levels that it did have, like all the story missions were all linear. I thought they were way better than the first games. Like I think this is one of the best sequels because it just completely outdoes the first game in basically every way, especially the gameplay and parkour systems are just a million times better. And I think it's the best like parkour in a video game, like for a first person at least. Like it's better than Dying Light, and which is another one of my honorable mentions. I love Dying Light. Like I love the parkour. I love even the melee combat, and like RPG elements. Like Dying Light, I think is such an awesome game. Can't wait to play 2. That'll be fun. But yeah, I love Mirror's Edge Catalyst way more than everyone else does for some reason. It's one of my favorites, and yeah, I hope more people give it a chance. Just because now it's very cheap. They're never gonna make another Mirror's Edge game, sadly. But hey, at least we got Ghost Runner coming up. But right, another one, Astrobot. I think it's it's probably my favorite like platformer ever, other than Mirror's Edge, I guess. And it's more of like a 3D platform, as like a Super Mario Odyssey or whatever.
They've gotten.
I would make it again. I have like zero doubts. I absolutely love it. Like, to me, I love the way it plays, and like also the VR integration is really cool. But I just love this game. I love the character, and it's such a cool game. Like, some of the boss fights are really inventive and just super cool too. And it's like, it's one of the must-have games if you get PSVR. And I think it's the best PSVR game, other than possibly what's it called, Half-Life Alyx. I haven't played that one, but I can understand how that could be the best VR game. From what I've seen, it does seem like it. Although also Blood and Truth is another incredible VR game that I love. It's just super fun. You're basically in a British gangster movie, doing everything, and it's super fun. Another one that I don't think is going to be on your list because you haven't finished it, but Death Stranding. It's like one of the most unique and just weird games. It's another one where it's hard to even explain why it's so good, just because the basic idea of it doesn't seem that special, or might even seem downright boring. Like, but it's just so much more interesting than what it sounds like in practice. Like, I don't know, it's kind of crazy the way it is. It's not a walking simulator. I hate it when people compare it to that, because there's so much more involved. There's so much more challenge involved, and I just think it's a stupid comparison. But it is basically, you play a UPS man post-apocalypse, but then there's also shooting and all sorts of other stuff, and like some RPG mechanics and inventory. Man, it's the weirdest game, but it is also so good, and the story is awesome and has all of Kojima's weirdness. And I think it's also like one of the absolute best looking games ever made, hands down. Like, it's still might be my number one. Like, they outdid Guerrilla Games on their own fucking engine. Like, it's insane. But yeah, I love Death Stranding. It's honorable mention. But then the other honorable mention is Assetto Corsa. Like, I think if it had multiplayer as good as Gran Turismo's, it would be number one. Despite it not being as good graphically or sound-wise, the physics and force feedback in this, the gameplay in this game are just so fucking good that it's why it's like pretty much my favorite for hardcore racing simulator, and it would be my favorite racing game ever if it wasn't for the multiplayer just not having what Gran Turismo have, which is a really good like ranking, skill-based matchmaking system, and a massive community to make sure that that skill-based matchmaking system actually works. Because I mean, honestly, it kind of works better than Rocket League's skill-based matchmaking system does, despite having less players. But yeah, Assetto Corsa is still one of my favorite games ever. And then remakes. Shadow of the Colossus is the best one, and probably one of the best games ever, I think. Uncharted 2, The Last of Us, and Crysis. Even though the Crysis remake, remaster, it's not a remake, it's getting kind of shit on because it doesn't run that great on PC. Which is kind of hilarious, because I thought the whole point of making a remaster of it on PC was so that it would finally utilize multi-core CPUs. And, yeah, that's because they made a Can It Run Crysis mode, which is just ridiculous. You know what LOD scaling is? Like, you know how there are different detailed versions of each object in an open world game? Like, you know, you get closer to it, a tree might all of a sudden have much more detailed leaves and stuff. You know, well, Can It Run Crysis mode is basically turns all of that off. So it's just the 100% of the environment is at 100% detail level all the time. Which is, it's just a meme. It's not a useful mode to have. But on top of that, it also doesn't run good, just in general, even without that mode. So that's why people are just like shitting on it. But at the same time, it still runs better than the original. And it still looks better than the original. And it still has more work put into it than most remasters. Like, The Uncharted collection is a textbook remaster. Same with Last of Us Remastered. Those are textbook, and Crysis has more work put into it. And it is a better situation on PS4, although it does have a couple of bugs. I haven't run into them recently. A couple of issues, but it looks fantastic on PS4 despite all that, and it's just super fun. It's the most fun way to play just because the controls are way better, gameplay is better. And yeah, so that's one of my favorite remasters and one of my favorite games too, which is why it made the list despite having some issues. But that's it for me.
I don't have too many. Neo is one of them. It was a toss-up for me between it and Bloodborne for what would make it onto the list, and Bloodborne edged it out just a little bit. So Neo's definitely on there, and to an extended sequel. The sequel is not quite as good, I don't think. Even mostly because it's actually easier, as weird as that sounds. Celeste, you mentioned it before. It barely got edged out, but it is unquestionably one of my favorite games of the last 7 years. Another game that I played exclusively on Switch, but it is on PlayStation as well, so I'm counting it. Everything was just a phenomenal game. Ratchet and Clank, the complete remake reboot.
Yeah, it's really good.
It was on my list and barely got edged out. Everything about it is just really good, and I like how it's not a one-to-one remake. It's a reboot of the series. They changed it around, included Nefarious, and just set up a whole new alternate timeline world kind of deal. Since Crack in Time kind of put a stamp on the series, more or less. Into the Nexus was kind of a weird tower defense like mashup. I don't that. Crack in Time basically finished the story seemingly, so it made sense for them to just reboot the series as a whole and change the first game enough while keeping it familiar. And I played through it 4 times. Not because I necessarily wanted to, but because there's one trophy that I needed for the platinum that just wouldn't register properly, or I kept missing.
Oh, jeez.
I don't exactly remember. I didn't get it by the 3rd, and I fucked up on the... I didn't get it on the 2nd, I fucked up on the 3rd, I guess. So it took me 4 playthroughs to finally get it.
Yeah, that's one I want to play again, and I never did get the platinum trophy, but it was an awesome game. Like, really good. Super fun to play, and it's really cool. Looked great, too.
Mm-hmm. Don't really have any other shout-outs. Basically just those.
Can you send me, like, on Discord your list?
Yeah, I do have my one last game though.
Oh, I thought you said you were done.
No,
okay.
That's okay. It's not... shouldn't be difficult. You'll probably get it pretty fast. We don't have to talk about it too much because you've talked about it already to some degree earlier.
Oh. Yeah. I talked shit about it.
Yep.
I do like it though. Like, it has great characters and story, and it looks pretty nice. But yeah, it's a good game for sure. Great game.
Yeah, I loved it when it came out in 2015. Just life kind of got in the way because I had my firstborn, and the lead up to it was kind of stressful. So it just kind of fell off, and then he was born, and then Ground Zero or Phantom Pain came out. So there's a lot going on, but it's that one game for like 5 years that every game I would play and beat, I'd be like, I kind of want to go back and play Witcher 3 and just beat it now. And I just never got around to it until earlier this year, where I finally put the time in, completely restarted my file and playthrough, and went, and I still haven't beaten it, but I'm actually pretty close. So I have a very good understanding of how the game is. I'm well past where I was in level, in skill, in knowledge of the game, and in the story. I'm like level 28, 29 or something like that, and I'm very much in the third act of the game. I just finished the Battle of Kaer Morhen, and that was the part where
You're basically at the end then.
It basically cemented it for me. I mean, there's a bunch of side quests that I have left to do, like assassinating King Radovid, which I was leading up to it and stuff like that. And I've done all the major side quests previously, like recruiting everyone to come, getting the trophy for that, even without necessarily knowing that I already got everyone, because I generally enjoy doing many of the side quests, the major ones. So some of them are just throwaway and pointless, but a lot of them are really cool and probably a little more impactful for me because I actually played through Witcher 1. I actually played through Witcher 2. So you may not know who Kira Metz is or who Letho was.
I had sex with her, but yeah, I don't know much beyond that. Me too.
That's why I chose to romance Triss instead of Yen, because I never read the book.
Yeah, you'd figure I would have too, but...
The redhead.
I know, I didn't though.
Triss has been in all 3 games. Yen has not been. So I just
Makes
had
sense.
Personal history with Triss. So, I did the Yennefer quest where she got a genie and wished away the wish to see if we would still love each other. And she's like, I feel the same. Nothing's changed. And I told her, sorry, I don't anymore. And then after that, it's just been awkward as fuck the entire time because I'm trying to butter up to Triss while still all the Kaer Morhen stuff where they're both together. Yen is like, should we leave you alone? Or talking about Triss, and she teleports me to the middle of a fucking lake because she's pissed off at me. That interaction is great. All the side stories, like the Letho stuff, and helping some of your Witcher friends like Lambert and Eskel. Lambert has a little side story where he's trying to find a murderer of a Witcher friend he had. And Letho is the main antagonist that becomes kind of a friend from Assassin of Kings, Witcher 2. All the Bloody Baron stuff is great. Really interesting. And then especially when you turn around and find out that the crazy old lady in the swamp is his wife. That's all pretty cool. The serial killer quest was very memorable to me. It's an amazing game, and the more I play it, the more I'm enjoying it, and it gets better with the DLCs. Like Blood and Wine is better than the main game, and that makes me super excited.
It is.
Yeah, that's what everyone basically says.
Shit. Well, yeah, I do still want to go back and play that. But...
So, I've been loving every minute of it, and it's the kind of game that I want to play all the time, but I can't because there's just they're constantly swearing, and there's titties fucking everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm up Bald Mountain right now with 3 crones.
Nice, but
yeah, tell me about it. I'm doing the 3 crones side quest main quest with Ciri towards the end, and I'm down in the tree as Ciri, and there's a cutscene playing with my kid next to me where the crones are hot and young and naked and covered in blood because they're eating people. Jeez. And I had to stop the game because it started getting a little too much. 2.5-year-old doesn't need to see bloody titties in a video game.
Yeah, definitely not.
But most of the time, the titties are nice.
Yeah. There are some alternate outfits you can put on it, and then they show even more titties, for Triss especially.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I used those.
The dress.
Well, there was some green dress you could put on Triss that just completely showed her the boobies and stuff.
The V-neck down to her belly button.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a fan of that one.
Oh yeah, that's basically all she's worn in my playthrough. I mean, there's a couple cutscenes where she is automatically reverted back to her normal traveler type garb, where she kind of looks like Robin Hood. But yeah, I've mostly had her in the dress.
Yeah, Fallout 4 is that game for me that like I always want to go back and finish, but just haven't yet.
I also need to too. I got to around the Institute part and stuff.
That's, yeah, me too. Like, I was also kind of playing it in the wrong way. Like, I was trying to do every side quest, and anytime I stumbled into things, I would like try to fully explore them too. And that's a way that the game can take like forever. So that's why I haven't finished it really. Like, but I did put like 80 hours into it. Like, one of those, you know, PS4 end of year stats, that was like one of my top games. Oh wait, no, that's, I don't know if that's true, but I think I know that I've played 80 hours just from the in-game counter. I forgot that game actually has one of those. So I also put 40 hours into Skyrim VR, but I'm nowhere near finishing that. I wasted so much time just trying to figure out how to get rid of the vampirism thing.
Complicated as fuck.
Or just walk. It is. It's ridiculous. Or just walking around like stabbing people, like, because it's really fun to do in that game. At least in VR mode, because you're swinging the sword. And that makes the difference for me. Because I never liked Skyrim just because I felt like the combat was just kind of boring. But when you're actually sitting there doing it, it's pretty fun. So it moved up. I used to be. Witcher 3 is way better than Skyrim. Now I kind of like Skyrim VR more, but yeah, they're both like really good popular games. I think Cyberpunk is going to be even better though, because from what I've heard, they said it's going to be shorter. Yes,
by a little bit.
Exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, Witcher is a lengthy game.
Very.
But it.
Once you hit Skellige though, it's like awesome.
Oh yeah, it goes. The music in Skellige is amazing.
Plus, just the location too. But also, like, I feel like the story just picks up and becomes more interesting at that point. So, yeah.
I mean, the story starts a little slow, but I think like the persecution of the witches in Novigrad was cool. The Bloody Baron, and mostly the whole. Once you learn more about him and the whole, he beat his wife and caused an abortion for his daughter, who is now haunting him. Story point was, that got pretty good, and the crones of all that. There's certain low points, but there's also a lot of high points. And Skellige as a location is more or less great. I don't like all of the discoverable locations in the middle of the ocean though, where you're constantly attacked by fucking sirens.
Yeah,
tear your boat
that shit
apart.
could be annoying, but.
On land, it's great. Some in the ocean is okay. Most of the ocean.
But yeah, I think. Is that your last one?
That was my last one.
Cool. I did remember two I wanted to shout out for VR and remasters. Wipeout Omega. It is absolutely stellar in VR. What was the other one? No, how could I forget it? Damn it. There's a good one too. Totally forget. But yeah, Wipeout Omega, awesome. And I guess that's it, because I cannot remember the other one. Oh, No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is awesome. That was the one I wanted to shout out to, just because it's changed so much, keeps getting better. And it's another one of those ones that are fully playable in VR, which is great. But yeah, shout out to those. But yeah, that is it. Probably our longest podcast ever. That's why I wanted to just like get your list, and so I'll just post them in the comments. So if someone just wants to know, fucking, they'll be there.
It's gonna be a lazy ass fucking list. I wrote it down on my wife's computer that I took a picture of on my phone, that I then edited with Peach color.
I mean,
in
as long as I can copy them over, that's all that really matters.
Oh, that means I have to type it. Balls. Okay.
Well, no, if I can see what is on the screen, that you can send the picture.
Oh, either works. I'll go the really lazy route. Fuck it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, like, I can type it out. I'm just saying, like, as long as I can read what's on the page, that's all that matters, really. But yeah, I guess I can end this stream now. But yeah. Hopefully PS5 ends up being good. Oh, did it send? We'll see.
In Discord, or did you want it in PlayStation message?
I guess it could be either. But I'm not seeing it on Discord.
Send it in multiple places. Fuck it.
Speed.
It's also the first podcast we've actually done in a while,
Well, yeah.
and it's been a long and enjoyable 7 years.
Yeah, it's my favorite console. So. But yeah. Alright, I'm gonna end the stream now, for real. Oh, of course someone tunes in right as I'm about to end. I'll probably be back in a little bit. I just need to eat something, and I think I'm gonna play more Mafia. Shoot some people and do some crime. It's fun. See you soon.
Yeah, I'm about to go to